Okay, so good morning everyone. Welcome to LevelUp IAS. जो बच्चे YouTube पे देखेंगे इस वीडियो को बाद में, they'll be able to watch the lecture right after this video, the first lecture on polity. I am here to just give you a brief about the entire program. What are we going to do? How we are going to do? Babu Sir would be speaking about what's going to happen in polity, but I want you to understand what is this GS Foundation program, because this GS Foundation program is very different from what happens everywhere else. First thing that I want all of you to know is you do not have to do anything else beyond this. In this foundation program, your CSAT is included, your essay is included, your current affairs programs are included, your mentorship is included, your prelims test series, mains test series, everything is included. So if you are part of GS Foundation program at LevelUp IAS, even for the students who are watching online, if you are part of GS Foundation program at LevelUp IAS, you will not join any other course either here or anywhere else. This is a fully comprehensive program. We keep in mind that एक बार student आया यहाँ पे तो the student should be our responsibility. We should not be doing this. Beta, spend 10,000 rupees more and join CSAT program, spend 10,000 rupees more and join essay program, or do this and do this. नहीं, वो सब कुछ नहीं होगा. No one is ever going to ask you कि ये वाला program और join करो और या कहीं और join करो, nor would you need it. The first aspect that I wanted to discuss was this, कि it's a program which takes care of everything that you need. Okay, so that was the first thing. Second, here we will not go like that ki we'll have one class a week, one class every week of history, one class every week of polity. We won't go like that. What we'll do is we'll do either one class at a time. Just say in your batch, in the April batch, polity has started. So for next 1 month, polity would go on. We will finish your entire polity syllabus. We will do PYQs. Abhi Babu Sir in classes would be taking all the PYQs, both objective and subjective. So what we have started doing this year is, after your batch is over, like after your classes are over, we will dedicate 5 classes just for answer writing. तो teachers, जैसे हमारा एक ना मेंस मास्टर्स प्रोग्राम चलता है, वहां पे हम मेंस के बच्चों के लिए आंसर राइटिंग पे फोकस करते हैं. We are doing that in GS Foundation also. जो बच्चे मार्च बैच वाले हैं, they'll be able to tell you the last 5 class of modern India was on what? Writing answers. So you'll be writing answers, you'll be doing answer writing practice during your normal classes also, but here again you'll be focused both on prelims, mains, or what we want is in next 40 days when you evaluate yourself, next 40 days mein your polity would be over, including Sundays, your polity would be completed. You should feel like polity syllabus is 15% of the prelims exam syllabus. I'm prepared for it. Polity syllabus is around 1/3 of GS2 syllabus. I'm prepared for it. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि पॉलिटी चल रहा है जनवरी तक और फिर आप सोच रहे हो हाँ कंप्लीट होगा होगा होगा. नो, यू शुड बी लाइक माय पॉलिटी प्रिपरेशन इज डन, माय पॉलिटी प्रिपरेशन इज कंप्लीटेड. Okay, so we will go with one class at a time or one subject at a time or maximum 2 subject at a time. जैसे जून में we have started with polity right now in this batch. Once polity is done in June, when the other subject starts, we'll be starting with history and geography. 3 classes on history and 3 classes on geography. That will go on for 3 months. But in those 3 months, आपका prelims, mains, पूरा history and geography would be done. You'll be able to look at each and every PYQ and say, मुझे आती है. You'll be able to look at all the answers and say, I'm done. You would have given so many tests that you will be confident in your preparation. Okay, now we have made the program comprehensive. We will ensure that subject wise we complete your entire preparation. But isme bhi na, this is not enough. What happens is you will do polity in April, May, June. Abhi April May it has started. April May there are only 2-3 classes, but then most of the classes would be in May and some classes in June. If you don't keep on revising it, what would happen? By December you'll be like polity is gone, you don't understand anything. So we also have a proper revision strategy for you in the class. First part was about comprehensiveness. You do not have to do anything else. Just follow the process. Second, we will do one subject at a time or two subjects at a time, so that we are getting this sense of completion ki after this is done, I'm able to, कोई भी मैं open test भी लूंगा तो I'm able to do all the history questions, I'm able to do all the polity questions. आप यूपीएससी का सिलेबस पेस्ट करके रखोगे ऑन योर बोर्ड और इन फ्रंट ऑफ योर वॉल, यू विल बी एबल टू हाईलाइट इट. ओके, दिस पोर्शन ऑफ द सिलेबस इज डन. In that manner, you will be able to track your progress. Third thing that I want to discuss is your revision strategy. How to revise. इसमें भी ना, follow your tests on Sunday. Every Sunday, till last batch we used to take 2 tests every Sunday. एक objective, एक subjective. Now students themselves recommended, rather than 2 tests, make 1 full test of objective on one Sunday, 1 full test of subjective on one Sunday. So what you will have is, you will have tests every Sunday. One Sunday you will have a 100 question objective test, another Sunday you will have a 10-12 questions ka subjective test. Now these tests have been planned in such a manner that they'll help you revise entire things effectively. जैसे क्या होगा, let's say you are writing you are attempting one weekly test. For this you revised whatever you studied in last 2 weeks. Syllabus हमेशा क्या होगा, last 2 weeks का. Weekly test में syllabus will be of last 2 weeks. Then next week you wrote another weekly test, another last 2 weeks का syllabus फिर से आया for your subjective test. Then you will again have weekly test, then you will again have weekly test. So here you are revising everything 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks wala system mein you are doing revision. But then we'll have a monthly test. Monthly test would be what? Entire syllabus, making you, forcing you कि भाई weekly test में तो आपने revision कर लिया, तो देखो, एक, when you go home today you will revise, that will be your first revision. Before your weekly test you will revise, that will be your second revision. In your monthly test you will again be forced to will you be revising today's class in your monthly test also? That will be your third revision. Now we'll go like this: weekly, 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 monthly, weekly, 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 monthly. But then at the end of 3 months you'll have a 3 monthly test, and here we'll also give you 1 or 2 day off, क्योंकि आपको अब 3 महीने का पूरा रिवाइज करना है. Fourth revision. And similarly, at the end of November, December, you'll have a 6 monthly test. We'll try कि उस time आपको 3-4 days का off मिले, so that you are able to do full-fledged revision. So we are not letting you forget polity. Polity you'll be doing in these weekly test, you'll be revising in this monthly test, you'll again revise it 3 months later in the 3 monthly test, you'll again revise it 6 months later in the 6 monthly test. And these will be bigger tests. जैसे यहाँ पे तो we have 100 question का objective test, 10 question का subjective test. These tests or this 3 monthly test, they'll be 20 questions वाले test, a full-fledged 3 hour के tests. Are we getting this? So why I'm telling you all these things in the beginning here? Follow the process. Don't miss tests. The moment you start missing tests, what happens? You start leaving your revision. You think कि एक बार पूरा syllabus हो जाएगा फिर test देंगे, नहीं. Whatever be the situation, you come and attempt the test. The moment you decide you're doing a test tomorrow, देखो, all of you have graduated recently. What did you do in your college? In your college, most of the time, no matter whether you were the topper of the college or whether you were not doing well, most of the study happened before tests, isn't it? Before test, our focus is higher. When we target that we have to attempt this test, what does it mean? It means you, in the evening, if someone asks you, let's go for a dinner, you'll be like, no, I have a test tomorrow, my syllabus is not done. In the morning, you would have overslept. On that day, you will not be doing that. Why would you not be doing that? Because you have test. So test should be priority, and if you follow it, you would have done enough MCQ practice, enough answer writing practice by the next year. And these will continue for 15 months. Aapka course is going to get over in January, February. But February tak you will have subjective test, objective test, subjective test, objective test, both the tests. After February, you will have every week objective test. And after May May, that is next year May, after your prelims, you'll have subjective test every week, and those will be full test. Those will be prelims test series, mains test series, जो सब आपके program का part है. So we have designed this course in such a manner that it takes care of everything that a student needs for preparation. Just follow the process. Class में MCQs, अभी sir will be making you practice MCQs. Go home, revise. If you spend 2 hours in class, give 2 hours at home also for that subject. Similarly, you'll be spending 2.5 hours of class in optional. Give 2 and 2.5 hours of your time, self-study time, to optional every day. 8-10 घंटे पढ़ोगे, इससे ज्यादा पढ़ाई नहीं होती है. Don't make those targets here. We'll be studying for 16 hours a day. All those things are impractical. Those things can be done for a week or a few days. This is a marathon. Marathon means you have to keep doing it for next 15 months. आपके mains examination तक every day consistently you'll be studying for 8 to 10 hours, including classes. Including classes, you'll be studying for 8 to 10 hours. Right? So comprehensiveness, we'll be doing 1 or 2 subjects at a time, so that we are finishing the subjects. We look at the syllabus and we say, okay, polity is done. This part of the syllabus, when I look at it, I understand each and everything about it. Now governance is done. Now IR is done. Economy is done. Agriculture is done. We should be progressing like that. And when in front of your board, you will in your study table, you will be able to see, oh, my entire syllabus is properly done. You will yourself have confidence कि will be able to do well in the examination. Okay, तो ये 3 aspects है, इसको अच्छे से समझो, अच्छे से follow करो, and you will see that everything required for your preparation would get taken care of. You will be ready for the exam in the very first attempt. And don't make these plans कि हमें 2 साल में, हमें 2 साल दिए, पेरेंट्स ने 3 साल दिए, 4 साल दिए, 5 साल दिए, जितने अटेम्प्ट लगेंगे उतने अटेम्प्ट लगाएंगे. नो, you should be thinking of clearing this examination in the very first attempt. I know it's difficult, but it's difficult because most of the students prepare haphazardly. उन्हें ना प्रॉपर गाइडेंस नहीं रहती है, तो इन फरवरी दे गो एंड रियलाइज अभी तो बहुत कम पढ़ा है, पढ़ाई अभी शुरू होगी. Our GS Foundation course is not like that. You will start doing answer writing in the very first week. है ना, आपका पहला टेस्ट 2 वीक से बाद शुरू होगा, इस वीक टेस्ट नहीं होगा, उसके बाद से आपका टेस्ट शुरू होगा. तो your first test will be objective, second test will be subjective. You will be forced to start writing answers right now. वो बच्चे फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में क्लियर नहीं कर पाते हैं जो प्री के बाद आंसर लिखना शुरू करेंगे. Their answer would not be good enough to clear the examination. You would start here and your answers would be good enough to clear this examination. Okay, कुछ और चीजें हैं जो I want all of you to follow. यार, have a life. Have a life का मतलब है ये नहीं है कि you're like only thinking about this exam. No, you should sleep on time. You should have 6 to 7 hours of sleep every day comfortably. You should, like, before you come to your class would be from 8 a.m. in the morning. Ensure that at 7:30 you're having something healthy. Have healthy food. Exercise every day. Spend 30-40 minutes in the park. Don't join gym and all. उसमें बहुत time लगता है. But in the evening or in the morning, अगर हो सकता हो, get up, go for a walk in the park, at least till October. October के बाद pollution बहुत होता है, तो there I recommend बेटा gym ही join कर लो कोई. But till October, what you do, you go for a walk every day, थोड़ा सा stretch करो, थोड़ा सा exercise करो. It will keep you motivated. It will keep you very, very active. Other than this, we also have Madhu ma'am with us. Madhu ma'am is your primary mentor. Anything about this course, any doubts you have, you can always go to her. She will also be discussing your test papers. जो आपके टेस्ट होंगे उनका डिस्कशन होगा, मधु मैम ले रही होती है. मधु मैम also contributes to making those papers. She has done very well in this examination. वो पहले सोशियोलॉजी में in her very first attempt she has scored 300 मार्क्स वो इंटरव्यू भी दे चुकी हैं एंड आपको इन जनरल हर चीज में, जैसे कई बार आपको ना टीचर्स के पास आने में डर लगता है, they can always go to her and get any kind of guidance, any kind of support. आपके पास मेरा नंबर भी है ना, you can always send me the message. Most of the teachers are there on the telegram group जिसमें आपको डाला गया है. will ensure that teachers वहां पे भी आपके डाउट्स को रिजॉल्व कर पा रहे हैं, है ना. तो आपको मेंटर्स भी एलोकेट, अदर देन मधु मैम आपकी क्लास की कोऑर्डिनेटर है और इन जनरल मेंटर है, बट आपको एक स्पेसिफिक मेंटर भी एलोकेट होगा जो कि टीचर होगा. Like in the Mars batch, I am mentoring most of the students. We'll also have mentorship session every Monday. पहले तो एक group mentorship session करेंगे and then we'll do what? We will, if you need one-on-one sessions also, we'll be doing that also. But if you follow the entire process, you will see that आपकी preparation बहुत systematic हो रही है. आपको अगर टीचर्स के बारे में जानना है, अभी से जानना है, अभी से समझना है, तो आपको हिस्ट्री निखिल सर पढ़ाएंगे, एंशिएंट मिडिवल कल्चर निखिल सर पढ़ाएंगे. निखिल सर इज द बेस्ट हिस्ट्री टीचर इन द कंट्री. मैं बोलता हूं लेवल अप आईएएस का जीएस फाउंडेशन प्रोग्राम सबसे अच्छा है, उसका एक रीजन है निखिल सेठ सर. बाकी सब टीचर्स का ना कंपैरिजन हो सकता है कि यहाँ पे मैं साइंस पढ़ाऊंगा, कहीं और कोई और साइंस पढ़ाएगा, यहाँ पे बाबू सर पॉलिटी पढ़ाएंगे, कहीं और कोई और पॉलिटी पढ़ाएगा, एंड देयर आर गुड टीचर्स, बट निखिल सर इज above all of them. मैं तो बोल रही है यस, है ना. तो आपको हिस्ट्री निखिल सर पढ़ाएंगे, मॉडर्न इंडिया विशाल सर पढ़ाएंगे, आपको ज्योग्राफी रुचिर सर पढ़ाएंगे. रुचिर सर इज आल्सो अवेलेबल फॉर द फुल टाइम इन ऑफिस, आप उनसे कभी भी मिलके बात कर सकती हैं. आपको जीएस 3 की प्राइमरली रिस्पांसिबिलिटी मेरी है, इकोनॉमी, साइंस, एनवायरनमेंट, डिजास्टर मैनेजमेंट. मेरा नाम संतोष कुमार है. पॉलिटी आपको बाबू सर पढ़ा रहे हैं, पॉलिटी गवर्नेंस बाबू सर पढ़ाएंगे, आईआर चंदन सर पढ़ाएंगे. चंदन सर हमारे यहाँ पीएसआईआर पढ़ाते हैं, तो द काइंड ऑफ एक्सपर्टीज दैट ही हैज इन दैट सब्जेक्ट अदर टीचर्स वुड नॉट बी हैविंग इट. जैसे मैं भी कभी कभी आईआर पढ़ाता हूँ, बट चंदन सर इज अ स्पेशलिस्ट फॉर दैट. आपको एथिक्स में जो गवर्नेंस वाला सेक्शन है वो बाबू सर ही पढ़ाएंगे. अच्छा, बाबू सर इज समवन हु हैज क्लियर्ड सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जामिनेशन थ्राइस. क्लियर्ड मतलब फाइनल रैंक्स. He has cleared UPSC एग्जामिनेशन 4 times क्योंकि उन्होंने CAPF भी क्वालिफाई किया है. तो उन्होंने CAPF भी क्वालिफाई किया है, सिविल सर्विसेज एग्जामिनेशन भी क्वालिफाई किया है. अगर उन्होंने सर्विस ज्वाइन करी होती तो अभी आईएएस ऑफिसर होते. तो यू आर स्टडिंग फ्रॉम समवन लाइक हिम. वो आपको एथिक्स में भी, जो एथिक्स इन गवर्नेंस वाला सेक्शन होता है ना, वो बाबू सर पढ़ाएंगे. एथिक्स का जो फिलॉसफी वाला सेक्शन है वो आपको विश्वा सर पढ़ाएंगे. विश्वजीत यादव सर हैज आल्सो cleared this examination in the past. 2013 में उनकी 300 समथिंग रैंक थी. वो इंडियन ऑडिट्स एंड अकाउंट सर्विस में सर्व कर चुके हैं, बट ही प्रेफर्ड टू टीच एंड टू वर्क इन एनजीओस रादर देन बीइंग इन सर्विस. तो आपको फिलॉसफी ऑप्शनल और एथिक्स में फिलोसफिकल वाला पार्ट वो पढ़ाएंगे. बाकी जो मिसलेनियस टॉपिक्स जैसे सोसाइटी, सोशल जस्टिस, ये साहिल सैनी सर पढ़ाते हैं. साहिल सैनी सर इज अनदर एक्सीलेंट टीचर. आप वो YouTube पे काफी पॉपुलर है, आप उनके YouTube पे वीडियोस देख सकते हैं. आपको एस्से पढ़ाने के लिए चक्रवर्ती, एसएन चक्रवर्ती सर आते हैं. हमारा ना एक मेंस का प्रोग्राम होता है जहां पे वो बच्चे आते हैं जो फाउंडेशन वगैरह कर चुके हैं, जो 1-2 बार मेंस दे चुके हैं. इस बार जो हमारा मेंस मास्टर्स प्रोग्राम हुआ था, उसमें स्टूडेंट्स, अब देखो मेंस प्रोग्राम में वो बच्चे थे जो सारे स्मार्टर वाले हैं, जो ऑलरेडी सिलेक्टेड है, जो ऑलरेडी मल्टीपल मेंस दे चुके हैं, या जो इस एग्जाम के लिए sufficiently prepare कर चुके हैं. They said that the best thing they had in the class, in the mains program, was classes of Chakravarti sir, because the way he taught essay, they had not, वो तो सारे बच्चे पहले हर जगह पढ़े हुए थे ना, they had not studied it anywhere else. ऐसे ही आपको CSAT जो पढ़ाएंगी वो हिमांशी मैडम पढ़ाएंगे. अगेन हिमांशी मैडम will teach you CSAT like your friend, rather than complicated formulas. जो एक मैथ्स टीचर का परसेप्शन होता है ना कि वो आके कॉम्प्लेक्स फॉर्मूलाज लिख रहे हैं, नहीं. she'll be like you'll not even be able to differentiate कि यार ये टीचर है या हमारी फ्रेंड है. she will explain CSAT to you in that simple systematic manner. Okay, so this entire team is made out of people who are excellent. From June I'll come to meet you every week for taking current affairs classes. आपकी current affairs classes जून में start होंगी, right after preliminary examination. Till prelims I'm focused on last year's batch. Right after preliminary examination I'll start taking your current affairs classes. So I'll meet you every Saturday, Sunday, and then From August I'll start taking your economy classes also. तो उसके बाद तो Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we will meet in studying economy, and Saturday, Sunday also we'll be meeting in doing current affairs classes. Okay, तो my only request to all of you is follow the process. आपको बहुत सारे लोग बाहर बोलेंगे नहीं यार जीएस फाउंडेशन इज नॉट गुड इनफ, वो सही बोल रहे हैं, बिकॉज उन्होंने जीएस फाउंडेशन लेवल अप में नहीं करा है. कोई लेवल अप का बच्चा आपसे ये नहीं बोलेगा, बिकॉज वी मेक इट वेरी सिस्टमैटिक, वेरी रिगरस, टेकिंग केयर ऑफ ईच एंड एवरी नीड ऑफ द स्टूडेंट. यू फॉलो द प्रोसेस. आप फरवरी में विल बी प्रिपेयर्ड फॉर एग्जाम. फरवरी में क्या बचा होगा आपका? मार्च और अप्रैल में जो करंट अफेयर्स आएगा वो तो मार्च अप्रैल में आएगा, तभी पढ़ा सकता हूं मैं. तो आफ्टर फरवरी योर ओनली क्लासेस विल बी ऑफ current affairs that I'll continue to take, and after your prelims also the only classes that you'll need will be of current affairs updates that I will keep taking for you. But you will be, if you follow this, if you attempt each and every test, you will be prepared for this examination. In the examination hall when you will enter, you will not feel like ये मेरी preparation नहीं हुई है. तो जरूरी क्या है? हर एक टेस्ट को देना. यू अटेंड क्लास ऑनलाइन, यू अटेंड क्लास ऑफलाइन, आप क्लास अटेंड मत करो, ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ता. टिल द टाइम यू कीप डूइंग वेल इन योर टेस्ट्स. इफ यू कीप डूइंग वेल इन योर टेस्ट, यू आर प्रिपेयर्ड. इफ यू डोंट डू वेल देयर, we will work on improving it. But if you don't attempt it, we will not know what's going on. And that is why, what do you have to do? Attempt every test. Every week you'll have a test starting second week. इस first week में हम टेस्ट नहीं रख रहे हैं आपका. सेकेंड वीक से आपका टेस्ट होगा. यू विल हैव 100 क्वेश्चंस ऑफ पॉलिटी जो आपके पहले टेस्ट में आएगा. देन 10 क्वेश्चंस ऑफ पॉलिटी सब्जेक्टिव वाला जो आपके पहले टेस्ट में आएगा. विल गो लाइक दैट. तो फॉलो इट. ओके, नाउ स्टूडेंट्स जो डू यू हैव एनी डाउट्स, एनी कंसर्न्स दैट यू वुड वांट टू आस्क? ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट कब स्टार्ट होंगे बेटा? कौन सा ऑप्शनल है? बिकॉज डिफरेंट ऑप्शनल्स बेटा जून में, राइट आफ्टर प्रीलिम्स इट विल बी स्टार्टिंग. ओके, आई थिंक either 3rd of June or 10th of June, जो भी मंडे आएगा ना उसमें स्टार्ट हो जाएगा. ओके, एनीथिंग एल्स, एनी अदर डाउट? नो. ओके, ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट्स, डू यू हैव एनी डाउट्स बेटा? अभिनय, आकांक्षा, हेमा, नीरू, निकिता, श्रेया, एनी डाउट्स? नहीं सर, इन सी ऑप्शन के नहीं, तो कोई पुरानी डाउट है. तो दैट्स इट, है ना. अब द स्टूडेंट्स हु आर वाचिंग this session online, right after this Babu Sir will come and will take the first polity class. Your topic will be starting, will be starting with polity, and polity, history, geography, economy. This is the order we'll follow. पहले 4 core subjects will finish, and then we'll go to society, social justice, IR, governance, science, environment. All those things would happen after that. Okay, तो just do not, अच्छा एक और चीज है, do not run behind study material. Follow the classes. लास्ट में एक ये, अदरवाइज क्या होता है ना, your friend may be reading some good book and the book is definitely good, but the moment you start doing something else, this entire process gets affected. आपको नोट्स मिल रहे हैं, आप वो, टीचर will recommend you some book to read that book, otherwise we'll provide you all the study material in the updated form before every class. First finish that, and then if teacher has recommended you some book, read it. Otherwise, please ensure whatever you are being taught, you will be able to do that in the examination. I promise you, you will get selected. मैं बच्चों को ये बोलता हूँ, I do not say 100% selection guarantee for all the students. What I say is, if you are able to do well in whatever you have been taught, whatever is there in your notes, you will get selected. आपका सिलेक्शन विल बी डिटरमाइंड बाय व्हाट यू हैव स्टडीड. जो आपने पढ़ लिया है उसको सही करके आ जाओगे एग्जाम में, यू विल गेट सिलेक्टेड. जो आपने पढ़ लिया है और उसको भी सही नहीं करके आओगे तो यू विल नॉट. व्हाट बुक यू हैव नॉट स्टडीड, उससे आपका सिलेक्शन डिटरमाइन नहीं. आपका सिलेक्शन किससे डिटरमाइन होगा? फिर से जो आपने पढ़ा है वो सही करके आओ, आपका सिलेक्शन हो जाएगा. आई कैन प्रॉमिस यू दिस. ओके, तो विद दिस I'll end this introductory session, and for students watching it on YouTube, you'll be able to get the first lecture right after this. Thank you very much.
So the students have already joined the first batch. So how was the subject experience so far? Are you able to comprehend the things? And are you doing regular revision? That's very important. Okay. And for the students who have joined the fresh batch, that is batch number 2, this is going to be the first subject. For all the students, all the subjects will be covered, but probably the first batch students might complete their subjects maybe 1 or 2 months prior to the new batch. All right. Okay, so it will take 5 more minutes because I need the PPT. So they're just arranging the PPT. So I'll just brief you about the examination for 5 minutes, which you might already know because of the information. So I'm not going to go in depth, but I'll just tell you that the things that you'll have to keep it in your mind. So first, there are few myths about the examination. So you'll have to be very clear about all these myths. So I'm so sure that I'm audible to the online students also. Okay, so online students, you can also just let me know if there is any doubt from your side. So first and foremost thing that you'll have to encounter is many people will talk in a way that they might discourage you. So that is first thing. So they might say that it is a very difficult examination to clear and it is not easy. You are taking a very big risk because success will take some time. So in the meantime, you will get all such advice. So you should not care about all those things because you have decided to prepare for this examination. You should only focus about clearing this examination. Okay. The second thing is they might say that only the very intelligent people can clear this examination. That is not the truth. All that it required for this examination is only average intelligence. So you are the best person to assess yourself. So I'm saying an average intelligence, a mediocre student in the school, colleges, they can also clear this examination. That is sufficient enough. But what it requires is it requires a more of your personality rather than the intelligence. I said average intelligence plus more of consistency, perseverance, and you should, as I already said, you should pursue with whatever. You should pursue with your preparation. And it is like a marathon race. It is not a 100-meter running race that you can just complete in one day. It is not that even if you're super intelligent, you cannot just wake up in the morning, read the entire subject in one single day and go for the examination. That is not how it works. It requires a consistent preparation for 18 to 24 months that I'm taking, that if everything goes well, that it will take 18 to 24 months, including 1 year of preparation before the examination, before you go to the prelims. And then the entire examination itself will take for 1 year. You know that right from the prelims, mains until the interview stage, it is going to take 1 year. So put together 18 to 24 months of consistent preparation is essential. Consistent means consistent. How much hours should I read? That is up to you. So because someone might be working, someone might be full-fledged preparing. But for 18 to 24 months, a consistent preparation, for someone it can be 5 hours, for someone it can be 6, for someone it can be 8, for someone it can be 10. But it should be a consistent preparation. And it should be a very productive preparation. It is not that just keeping the books in front of you and just spending the time. That will not amount to consistent and productive preparation. It has to be a productive preparation. That means whatever time that you spend, you should learn a substantial amount of things. Okay, so this is something that you'll have to keep in your mind. So just don't discuss with too many people also. So you can have your mentors, you can have discuss with certain people, but make sure that they are people who have gone through the entire examination process. And most importantly, who is very positive about what you are doing. So even if they have got the experience, but somebody is negative about what you are doing, so try to avoid those contacts. So try to be in link with people who are like-minded, who are very positive. That's also very important. And the most important thing that you have to keep in your mind is you are likely to go through mood swings. So there will be time that you feel very low about the decision that you have made. There will be time that you will feel that, is it the right decision that you have made? Is it something that I can pursue? But believe me that you are not alone in that. Each and every single student who's in this preparation will come across such mood swings. Even the person who secured the first rank, at some point or the other, they would have felt little bit of negativity in what they are doing. But your ability to succeed depends upon how well you are able to come out of it, how soon you are able to come out of it. Okay, so these are all some things that you have to keep in your mind. And if you can pursue through all those things, success is guaranteed. So it just requires consistent preparation. 3 important things. One is stick to basic materials. When I say basic materials, you just pick a particular material for a particular subject and then stick on to that particular thing, revise it multiple times. Have conceptual clarity in whatever you are reading. And if you're not having clarity, approach the teachers, or whatever way you can get the conceptual clarity, you should move towards that. So first is stick to basic materials, have conceptual clarity, revise and do the previous year questions, and of course the practice question also, but my priority would be previous year questions first, and then you can go for the other practice questions. So if you start doing these 3 things continuously over a period of time, your success is guaranteed. All right, so that's a basic introduction I wanted to give because the PPT was not ready. So now with that, I'll give a brief introduction about the subject, and then I'll go to the basics of the subject. For the first 2-3 days, we are not going to cover much. We are not even going to enter into the topics that is given in the syllabus. For 2-3 lectures, I wanted to give you the basics about this particular subject. So before I get into that, can anyone from this class tell me how many of you have got some background from polity? Any background? In the sense that you have done your graduation, post-graduation. How many of you are a postgraduate in this class? Any postgraduate? What is your background? MSc? Criminology. So nothing related to this. Maybe some provisions of the criminal laws. Otherwise, no other background. All right. What is your background? Okay, so no background in that. All right. How many of you have done your undergraduation? All of you have completed your undergraduation? Any students still pursuing your undergraduation? Okay, some of you pursue, but no background in this. Okay, so the good thing about UPSC preparation, especially when it comes to your general studies, UPSC know that it has to be a level playing field, because general studies is something which is common to all the students. So that's why the level of the questions and the level of understanding UPSC would expect is it should be equal to all the candidates. So it is not going to give any advantage to someone who has done. Of course, somebody who has done their graduation, they might know few things, but the questions in UPSC will be of that level. Even a person without any specific knowledge will be able to read and able to understand. So it is not going to be a very difficult thing, provided that you do whatever I said on a regular basis. All right. So with that, I'll just go to the introduction of the subject. So before that, I'll give a brief introduction about myself also. So my name is Babu Sir. So I started preparing for this examination in 2008. And starting 2008, I have, in the very first year after starting my preparation, I cleared my Central Armed Forces CAPF examination, Armed Police Forces examination. I got All India rank 37 in that. But I started preparing for UPSC. I just gave that attempt, but it turned to be successful. So I joined the service. I worked as an assistant commandant till the year 2013. From 2010, I joined, and then I subsequently worked there for 3.5 years. And in the year CSE 2013, I was successful in the civil service examination also. I got All India rank 629. And then for some reason, I'm not able to join the service. And then I cleared the examination again in CSE 2016. And I secured All India rank 337 in CSE examination 2016. And right from there, 2014, I am associated with the students in mentoring them, in teaching them. So it is almost, you can tell me, teaching experience of 10 years. And please come in. Teaching experience of 10 years. And then even before that, as a student, I have an experience of around 5 to 6 years. So it's more than 15 years of experience in this particular field. And active as a teacher, 10 years. That is even more important, because when I become a teacher, I understood that to teach for this examination, the knowledge that was required to clear this examination was not sufficient. So you will appreciate that fact, that clearing this examination is much more easier when you come to teach, because you will have to encounter a lot of doubts and all those things, which is not the level of expertise that is required to clear the examination. So if you're going to clear the examination, don't try to spend a lot of time in a particular subject. That specialization is not required. You'll have to be a jack of all trades to clear the examination. To teach for the examination, you should do specialization in certain areas, which is not the purpose for you at this stage. All right. So that's the background that I got, and it was also easy for me to help the working students, especially because I was also working when I was preparing. So that is also some area where I can help. If in case somebody is a working candidate, you can approach me on that also. All right. So with that, I'll just get into the subject. So I am going to deal the subject Indian polity. Of course, today I am going to start for the next 30 lectures or so. I'll deal with Indian polity. And then I'll also teach the governance part for you. So both your Indian polity and the governance part, which is basically part of your GS paper 2. So most of you might be aware of the syllabus. How many of you gone through the syllabus? Please be frank about it. How many of you gone through the syllabus? How many of you have not yet gone through the syllabus? Please be open. Okay. So if you have not gone through the syllabus, I'll tell you to go and read the syllabus today itself. How many of you remember the syllabus? Okay, you've gone through the syllabus. How many of you remember your syllabus? I mean, GS paper. If not the entire syllabus word by word, at least a keyword in the syllabus. How many of you can recollect it, right? Anyone who can recollect the keywords in the syllabus? If you want to succeed in this examination, the first thing that you should remember, first thing you should do is you'll have to remember your syllabus. Without knowing the syllabus, you will be directionless. So many times students ask me, sir, how do I know what I have to read in current affairs? How do I know what I have to read in the newspaper? That confusion will gradually evade. That confusion will not be there for the students who remember the syllabus. If you don't remember the syllabus, you are lost when you take up the newspaper. Not only for GS paper 2, for all the GS paper, you should know the syllabus. It's not a very difficult thing. If you just think that it is a syllabus, I have to remember, it is a difficult thing. But you'll have to paste it somewhere in front of you. On a daily basis, you'll have to look at it. Daily spend 5 to 10 minutes just looking at the syllabus. After 1 or 2 months, the entire syllabus will get into your mind, into your subconscious mind. And when that is there in your subconscious mind, when you open up the newspaper, immediately, not now, it will take some time, maybe 3 months once you start preparing. After 3 to 5 months, probably you know, okay, this particular topic may be relevant to the syllabus that is given in the UPSC examination. Okay, so I am reading this particular article. So there is a relevant topic in GS paper 2. Okay, I'm reading this article in Science and Technology. There's a relevant topic in the Science and Technology, GS paper 3. Okay, I'm reading this example. Maybe it is a relevant example for the syllabus that is given in the ethics paper. So once you are able to make this particular connection, you will be able to score well in your mains examination. So this connection will happen in the first place only when you remember the syllabus. So that's the reason I say the first thing that you have to do is what? You'll have to remember the syllabus. Okay, you may not know what it may deal with, but just try to remember the syllabus first. Then gradually, once you attend the classes and all those things, you will be able to make this correlation. So try to do that effort from now on, okay? I'm not saying that you'll have to memorize on the very first day, but at least spend 5 to 10 minutes looking into the syllabus, okay? So that's a very, very important step. Okay, so my area anyways is only Indian polity, and then I'll also do your governance. So today I just wanted you to, for the 5-10 minutes, I wanted to brief about the syllabus, okay? So can anyone tell me how much is the marks for GS paper 2? In the mains examination, of course. So if you see Indian polity, I'll further divide that into 2 areas. So it is relevant for your prelims. So that's a speciality of this particular subject. It's relevant for your prelims and it's also relevant for your mains examination. Right. So it is there for both your prelims as well as the mains examination. So prelims, can anyone tell me how much questions approximately comes? You know that prelims is for 200 marks, your GS paper 1, and your CSAT is for 200 marks. So out of those 200 marks, how much marks you can expect from Indian polity? Any idea? 100 questions. Okay, let me bring it to the number of questions. Out of 100 questions, how many marks or how many questions for Indian polity? Approximately. Okay, so 20 is on a very liberal side. So let us put it a conservative note. Okay, so whenever we plan, let us make it little conservative. On an average, if you see the last 5 years, 15 questions are coming, even on a conservative note. but it can vary from individual year. There were years that 20 to 23 questions have been asked. There were years 10 to 12 questions has been also been asked. But conservatively, if you put an average of 15 questions, so 15 questions means roughly how many marks? So 15 questions, that will make it to 30 marks. So do you know how much marks you need to clear the prelims examination? Any idea as to what is a cutoff for the prelims examination based on your previous year? If you have got an idea, around 95 is on the very high side. What is so 85 to 90 probably for a general candidate. If you have got some quota, then it might be even little less. But let us calculate the general marks. Okay, even let us assume that it is 90 marks, but I think it is less than 90 marks. I don't remember it exactly, but for the last 5 years, never ever it has cost 90 marks. And for the last 20 years, never ever it has cost 50%. So that means what is the cutoff that it is required to clear the prelims examination? Maximum 50% of the marks. Assuming that it is 90 marks, that means 1/3 of your mark is going to come only from polity if you are good in this particular subject. That doesn't mean that I'm telling you to read only polity. I'm just saying what is the weightage. You'll have to read all the subjects equally. But despite that, why I'm saying this is there are few students, that's a human tendency, they will not be able to equally comprehend all the subject. There may be certain areas, certain subjects where you may have a liking. There are certain subjects, it may be a little difficult for you to comprehend the concepts. So that is where it is very important to identify your strength. And polity is on one area where you can easily understand. That's not an issue. So I'm not saying that you will be able to get all the 30 marks because UPSC is UPSC. So despite whatever effort that you put, they'll come with some bounces. They'll come with something that you cannot predict. But 80% of this is very much achievable, even if you do the very basic things. Stick to one particular book, stick to the class notes and the relevant current affairs. 80% definitely you can do it. So our focus is only to get 80%. I'm not saying 80% is a maximum. Somebody can get even 100% also. But even an average student sticking to the basics, they will be able to get 80%. That means you can get 25 marks. That is not a big deal. So similarly, if you pick up at least another 2-3 subjects like this, where your strength is, then your purpose is done. That means you can clear the prelims examination. That's not a big deal. So the point is, we should not unnecessarily complex the preparation. So just stick to the basics, do the basic things, and then you will be able to do that. Okay, so this is with regard to the prelims examination. So with regard to the mains, this is Indian Polity is part of your GS paper 2. So it is part of your GS paper 2. So can you tell me what is the total marks for GS paper 2? 250 marks. All the GS paper 250 marks. So out of 250 marks, what is the marks that is given to the area Indian Polity? Any idea out of 250 marks? If anyone has tried to go through that, apply your mind on that particular area. I know that writing mains is a for thing, but somewhere or the other you'll have to go to that particular stage. So you'll have to make an assessment for that also. You should at least have an idea about that as well. How many marks? Very good. So it can be between 90 to 110 marks. So I'll making it an average of 100 marks. So how much marks is going to be from Indian Polity? So I'll just put it for your idea for those who does not have an idea. So there are 4 major areas in GS paper 2. Polity is one major area. And then you have what is called as governance. In fact, both polity and governance, I'll take it for your batch, okay, for all the students. And then there's an area what is called as social justice. And then finally, there's another area which is called as international relations. These are the broader topic, macro topics. There are micro topics under each and every major heads that I have given here. So these 4 areas will make up your GS paper 2. But out of this, the major weightage is given to which area? Is given to Indian Polity, which is going to be 100 marks. So roughly around 10 questions are likely to come from this particular area. You know that UPSC asks 2 types of questions. One is 12.5 mark, another is 10 marks. So if I put it here, so roughly there can be few questions of 10 marks and few questions of 12.5 marks. So roughly around 100 marks minimum, I'm saying. It can be little more also. And then average in governance also, they're asking 3 to 4 questions. So it will be 50 marks. It can be little less in polity, little more in governance, little less in governance, little more in polity. But combining these two, UPSC is maintaining a standard of 150 marks. So 150 marks is what I'm going to cover. But governance will come a little later, not at this stage, because governance is purely only for your mains examination. But when it comes to polity, it is relevant for both your prelims as well as our mains examination. So what we will do as we'll proceed with the subject Indian polity is, we'll have an integrated approach. It's not that I'll only teach what is relevant to prelims. It is not that I cannot separately teach what is relevant for the mains. Whenever I take a topic, I'll teach what is relevant to for both prelims as well as the mains. Okay, so we'll do that exercise as we'll proceed. And apart from that, anyways, these two is not in my domain, but anyways, for social justice, the marks right now UPSC is asking is 50 marks, 4 questions, and international relations 50 marks, 4 questions. So this is the breakup, but anyways, this is not my domain. Later the teachers will teach. These two things I'll take it up, but presently I'm going to deal with the Indian polity. Indian polity, how many of you remember the syllabus? Anyone? Remember at least some few keywords in the syllabus? So let us try to make an assessment of that, 5 minutes. Okay, so what are the keywords from where the questions, how many questions are being asked? Can anyone tell me some of the keywords in the syllabus? Main syllabus, of course. For the prelims, UPSC has not given an elaborate syllabus, but for the mains examination, UPSC has given an elaborate syllabus. Can anyone tell me the keywords that you remember in GS paper 2 from the polity part? Indian constitutional schemes. Okay, so comparison of the constitution with the other countries. Comparison of Indian constitution with that of the other countries is a keyword. Okay, anyways, that's coming a little later. Any other keywords that you remember? Salient features, very good. Salient features of the Indian constitution. Any other keyword that you remember? I'm not looking into the micro topics, major topics, if you remember. Because when you say preamble, that the preamble is again part of the constitution. Yes. Constitutional and non-constitutional bodies. Okay. Constitutional, statutory, and other types of bodies. Okay. Okay. So few things that you have gone through. Okay. So let me just break up the syllabus as to how the questions are likely to come. So if you look into the topic, the first thing that is given is historical underpinnings. Historical underpinnings. So there may be one question likely to come from the prelims also. Sometimes, rarely, they can ask you questions in the mains examination also from this particular topic of historical underpinnings. This is not even related to the Indian constitution, but this is the topic that will deal with how the Indian constitution came into existence. What has happened historically that has resulted in the constitution of India. So most of you knew that India was almost ruled by the Britishers for 200 years. And when India was ruled by the Britishers, that is, when India was British India also, there was some element of governance. The British ruled India. So they did make laws, and based on the laws, they governed India. And many of the provisions in the Indian constitution today has been taken up from those laws. So how these historical developments have happened is what we'll understand in this particular topic. Okay, so right from 1773. So don't worry about the facts right now. I'll deal with that later. So right from 1773, the Britishers have made laws. The British Parliament, they have made laws to govern India. 1773, do you know what is the last law that has been made by the British Parliament to govern India? Very good. Government of India Act 1935. I think the students who are in the previous batch, they might have learned something. I do not know. Maybe, probably, because that's also overlapping with your modern history. So 1773 till 1935, the British Parliament, the Britishers have made law to govern India. So when the constitution was drafted, a lot of things has been taken from these areas also. So that's what basically we will learn. I'll not touch into the area of history, but strictly from the point of view of the constitutional development is what I'll deal with here. So this is basically the historical underpinning. So sometimes there's a possibility UPSC can ask one question from this particular area. How many questions may be asked? One question at the max. So that's important. I'm talking about the mains point of view. Prelims, I'm not giving the breakup, okay? And then the second important area after the historical underpinning is the salient features in the constitution. Let me put it in a broader topic, salient features. Salient features in the constitution. What do you mean by salient features? Can we say important features, maybe significant ones in the Indian constitution? That also brings down to me the question of what is a constitution, which I'll subsequently discuss after giving a brief about the syllabus. Can you think of some salient features, some significant features of the Indian constitution? What do you mean? Salient means the most important. So what are some of the important features of the Indian constitution? For somebody who has got some idea. Written constitution, supremacy of law, longest written constitution. These are all some, okay, these are all some features. But if you talk significant features or some of the significant provisions, probably I'll put it to significant provisions also, which is there in the constitution. What about fundamental rights? Have you heard of the word fundamental rights? How many of you ever heard of it? Fundamental rights, which we'll subsequently discuss, but have you heard of this? Is a fundamental right so important for the citizens? Fundamental rights are so significant and so important, which we'll subsequently understand. Not only fundamental rights, then you have something which is called as directive principles of state policy. So in citizenship, so these are all some significant provisions in the Indian constitution. So these are all areas again we'll discuss in detail. So this is an area where you can expect 1 to 2 questions. So we'll try to touch upon a lot of significant features and provisions as we'll proceed. So 2 questions may come from this particular area. Okay, so then the third important topic is separation of powers. Don't worry about all those things, we'll deal. I'm just trying to give a breakup of where the questions can come. Separation of powers. Sooner I'll discuss all those things, but I'm just giving you as to how many questions may come from this particular area. How many of you heard about this word separation of powers? Even if you do not, if you are not aware of the concept, that is perfectly fine. But just separation of powers, because anyways I'm going to teach all those things. So here there can be one question. So one question from the topic. So these are all broader topics in your syllabus. And then you have something which is called as center state relationship. Which is also called as the federal political system. Center state relationship. How many of you heard about this word center state relationship? Have you heard of all those things? All right. So those who are not heard, no issues. I'll just explain about all those things. So here you can expect one question. One question from this particular area. So we have seen historical underpinning, salient features, separation of powers, center state relationship. And then there is the citizenship and all those things is coming under this particular area, significant provisions. And then you have something which is called as local bodies. Have you ever heard of this word local bodies? Or in other words, panchayat and municipalities. Have you heard of this? Panchayats, municipalities. So that's also called as the local bodies. So here you can expect one question from this particular area. And then the next important topic is what is called as Constitutional applic statutory bodies. Have you heard of constitutional applic statutory bodies? Have you ever heard of this word constitutional bodies? Can you give me an example of constitutional bodies? Again, I'm making it very clear. I'm just saying what is there in the syllabus. If somebody is not aware of these things, absolutely not an issue. So as I will proceed, you will be aware of this. But I just wanted to know if somebody has heard of this particular word, constitutional bodies. You don't have to explain me as to what is a constitutional body. Can anyone give me an example of a constitutional body? Yes, so what is the example? Very good. Election Commission of India is a constitutional body. Any other example of what is a constitutional body? NC, National Commission for Scheduled Caste. Very good. That's a constitutional body. So on and so forth, we have a lot of constitutional bodies. So here we will deal with all those things. And similarly, there is a topic which is also called as statutory bodies. Has anyone heard of a statutory body? So what is the difference between a constitutional body and a statutory body? First, an example of statutory body. What is a statutory body? Okay, somebody told me Election Commission of India is a constitutional body. Now, what makes Election Commission of India a constitutional body? Okay, so not necessarily it derives its power. The most important thing is, of course, when you say that it derives its power from the Constitution, that is not wrong, but it is not completely correct. What is more important to say, because the Election Commission of India not only derives its power from the Constitution, it also derives its power from the law that is made by the Parliament, from the ordinary laws also. But what is an important understanding of what is a constitutional body is that the body is established by the Constitution. From where the body is established? By the Constitution of India itself. And similarly, what is a statutory body? A body which is established by an act of Parliament or by an act of state legislature, not directly from the Constitution. So just think and give me an example of a statutory body. Yes? Attorney General of India is a constitutional position. So because the Constitution directly provides for a Attorney General of India. Can you just think of a body which is established by a law that is made by the Parliament? Which I understand that for the students who does not have any background, it might appear, okay, sir is asking some advanced question. Don't worry, just I wanted to assess and just wanted to explain about the syllabus, nothing more than that. How many of you heard about the SEBI? Just something which is very popular. Have you heard of this word SEBI? What is SEBI? It's a regulatory body, but what is the expansion of this word SEBI? Securities and Exchange Board of India. Have you heard of RBI? Reserve Bank of India. What is Reserve Bank of India? That's the central bank of our country, or you can say that is the regulator of the banks, all the banks in our country. Now, if you see these regulators, that is RBI when it comes to banks, Security and Exchange Board of India when it comes to the regulator of capital markets. Now, these are all statutory bodies. They are not established by the Constitution. They are all established by the law that is made by the Parliament. For SEBI, we have the Securities and Exchange Board of India Act. For RBI, we have RBI Act. So, if any body which is established by the law that is made by the Parliament in general, they are all called as statutory bodies. And certain bodies which is directly established by the Constitution, not by the law that is made by the Parliament, they are all constitutional bodies. So, can you just think of one more example of a statutory body? Because the law that is made by the Parliament is also called a statute. So, because another name for a law is also called as a statute, so anything that is established by a statute is what is called as a statutory body. So, can you give me one more example of a statutory body? Yes. State Bank of India, a broader regulatory body. Yes. Very good. National Commission for Women is a statutory body. So similarly, there are hundreds of statutory bodies in our country, but this is something that I'll take up later. I just want to have an idea. So here also one question. So definitely one question, maybe sometimes two questions also. So sometimes one question from constitutional body, one question from statutory body. So sometimes Only one question from both areas. So I'm just giving a very conservative note. Yes. Yes, of course, it's Waqf board is a statutory body because it is established by a law that is made by the parliament. So today the parliament has amended that Waqf Act, and that is why it is challenged in the court. So that's a statutory body. A number of statutory bodies are there. Okay. Okay. So this is one area. Another important topic is the legislature. Very, very important. So how many have heard about this word legislature? What does it mean by legislature? Very good. Legislature basically means a lawmaking body in our country as per the constitution. So what are the lawmaking bodies? Parliament. I'll put it Parliament. Parliament, and then at the state level you have state legislature. So I'll put Parliament / state legislature. Two questions, definitely two questions. It can be more than that, not less than this. Two questions from this particular topic of legislature. So we have seen historical underpinning, salient features, separation of powers, center-state relationship, local bodies, constitutional or statutory bodies. Legislature is basically a law-making body who are empowered to make laws under the Constitution of India. That's basically what is called as the legislature. So at the union level, you have the parliament. In every state in our country, we have state legislature. Okay, so because you are come to the UPSC preparation, can anyone tell me how many states are there in our country presently? 28, 29, about the states, 28, 29, 29 or 28? How many of you think it is 28? Anyone who thinks it's 29? So presently there are 28 states. How many union territories are there? 8 or 9? 8, 9, 7? I do not know. So how many union territories? Very good. So presently there are 8 union territories. Okay, so there are law-making bodies both at the central level and law-making bodies at the state level. So that's basically what is called as legislature. So from this, 2 questions are likely to come in your mains examination. And then there's another important topic of executives. These are all major broader topics, executives. And here from this particular topic, 1 question is likely to come. So when I talk of executives, where there can be 1 question, who is the chief of all the executives in our country? It is a president. So again, you can divide that. So for the union, it is the president, and for the states, it is the governors of the respective states. So from this area also, you can expect 1 question. Either it can be from the president, it can be from the governors, it can be from any of the other executives apart from the president and the governor. Who are the other executives apart from the governor? When I talk of the top executive for the union, I said it is a president, but the president may not be the real executive. So who are the real executives in our country? How many of you think that the civil servants, tomorrow when you become the IAS, let us assume, some of you might get into IAS, some of you might get into the police service, some of you might get into the foreign service, maybe other services in the central services. Irrespective of whatever service that you get in, do you think that the people who get into the service are the real executives? Who are the real executives in our country? Who are the real executives? Okay, so what is your answer? Who is the real executive? Civil servants, irrespective of the service that they get in, or only the IAS? All the civil servants. Okay, so basically the bureaucrats, maybe at the center or at the state level. Okay, so any other differing opinion? Who are the real executives? Cabinet of ministers, or the ministers of the cabinet rank. Okay, so somebody's opinion is the civil servants, somebody's opinion is the ministers. Anybody has got a differing opinion apart from these 2 things? Or somebody wanted to align with these 2 options only? My question is, who is the real executive? So is it, yes, Yeah, be open. Yes. Prime Minister is the real executives. Okay, so whatever you are telling already has covered it. He is saying the cabinet ministers, and in fact, the Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet minister. So he is also part of the cabinet minister. Very right. So any other opinion apart from the ministers, apart from the civil servants? Okay, now let us come down to these two options: Prime Minister and the other Council of Ministers, and then you have the civil servants. So among them, whom do you think is more powerful? Is it Prime Minister Mr. Modi is powerful, or is it some IAS officer is powerful? Who is the real executive? Who is the real executive? Of course, in a democracy, the it is the people who are elected and not someone who clears an examination. So that doesn't mean that I'm undermining the IAS or the IPS, but the constitution makes who as a real executive under the Constitution of India. It is the ministers and not the civil servants, because the ministers can give directions to the civil servant, and it is not vice versa. The civil servants can give advice to the ministers, but who will take the final decision? It is taken by the ministers. But the good part about the bureaucrats is that they're career bureaucrats. That means their tenure is much, much longer than that of the ministers. But whenever they are ministers, at that point of time, who are the real executives? It is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Although as per the Constitution of India, who is the topmost executive? It is a president, and below the president you have got the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. But our Constitution makes the president only a nominal executive, not a real executive. So who is the real executive in our country? It is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers at the union level. And similarly, in every state, who is the real executive? Chief Minister and the Council of Ministers. There the governor is merely a nominal executive. Okay. So of course, the bureaucrats got the power, but they are not the real executives. It is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So from those areas, one question can come in the mains examination. Of course, as we'll proceed, we'll try to understand the various dynamics. So this is one important topic. And then you have one more topic, which is called as the comparison of constitution across the world. Comparison of constitution across the world. So what does this topic means? Comparison of constitution across the world. What do you understand from this particular topic? Very good. So not only you should be aware of the Constitution of India, you should also be aware of the constitution across the world. Now, across the world, how many constitutions might be there? How many constitutions? Roughly, let us take at least some around 180 to 190 constitutions, because every country does have a constitution. Maybe a different constitution, but every country might have a constitution. And how much time do you think that it will take for you to have or master the Indian constitution? How much time do you think it will take? No, I'm not asking how much time the Constituent Assembly has taken to draft the Indian Constitution, but for you to personally to have a idea about the Constitution of India and to master in this particular area, it will take a lifetime. And still you can keep learning about the Constitution, because you have so many case studies and you have so many amendments and you have so much debates in the Constitution of India. It may take a lifetime for you to become a master of one constitution. Of course, the Indian Constitution is the lengthiest known constitution, so it is going to take time. And then how much time it will take you for you to read, once you make an assessment of the Indian Constitution, to compare the Indian Constitution with that of the other constitutions in the world? And that is not possible in a lifetime. But UPSC has still given it in a syllabus. So that means we'll have to have a very limited approach here. So it is not that we can have a very exhaustive approach. So these are all the areas where we cannot afford to waste time. But how do we know what we should read? So that is where we have an idea from the previous year questions. So look into the previous year questions, okay, how the questions are being asked. So we'll try to cover those areas. Okay, you may ask you what is a guarantee that UPSC may return the same thing? UPSC might ask something else apart from that. Yes, of course they can ask. But if nobody is answering that particular question, then you are not in a disadvantaged position. Now try to understand, this is a competitive examination. So depending upon others' performance, your performance is going to vary. Suppose let us assume that any student is not able to attend the 10 mark, then the entire paper itself is assumed to be only for 240 marks, not for 250 marks. So therefore, you are not in a disadvantaged position. But if you had some luck, probably you had an idea, then it is an advantage. But otherwise, it will not turn to be disadvantage. But the good thing about UPSC is UPSC for the last, since they have brought in the change. I think 2012 they have brought in this particular change of the new pattern. Starting 2012 for the last 13 years, UPSC has been asking questions only from 3 countries from this particular area. What are the 3 countries? Any guesses? Very good. UK, USA and France. So therefore, what is the similarity between the Constitution of India and these 3 countries? What is the similarity? Can anyone just, the broader, larger similarity? I'm not asking about the minute things. No, that is okay. It is not taken from USA. It is almost similar to that of Canada. But what is the broader similarity, a larger similarity between all these constitutions? Very good. As simple as that. All these 3 countries plus the Constitution of India make their respective countries as a democracy. So UPSC is not going more beyond that. So you'll have to look into the major constitutions and which is similar to that of the Constitution of India, but they do have their own, I would say, minor differences in terms of certain constitutional provisions. Although India is also a democracy, US is also a democracy, but there's a difference between that. So can anyone tell me what is the difference between Indian democracy and the democracy in United States of America? Very good. So India is a parliamentary democracy, whereas USA is a presidential democracy. So therefore, though broadly they are all democracies, there exist certain differences. So you should be aware of all those differences, which I'll discuss. Okay. So when I take up the respective areas, I'll discuss that also. So here you can expect 1 question. So maximum how many questions? 1 question. So whatever questions, the range that I'm giving, it is maximum. Okay. And then there's also one more topic that is also part of the Indian polity. This is the last topic. That's a Representation of People's Act. This is also called as RPA. How many of you heard about this word, Representation of People's Act? Have you heard of this? So what is this Representation of People's Act? In fact, this is a law that is made by the Parliament. Now, if you look into all these things, there's a similarity in all the cases, excluding this Representation of People's Act. Representation of People Act is completely different from all the other things that I've mentioned so far. Can anyone tell me how this Representation of People Act is completely different from all the other things? Very good. So this is the only thing that you are in your syllabus that is part of a law that is enacted by the Parliament. Now, remaining all the things that you are going to discuss is directly there in the Constitution of India. So all the things are there in the Constitution of India. This is not in the Constitution of India. It is a ordinary law that is enacted by the Parliament. Okay, so there are also some difference you'll have to understand, but I'll deal with that later. Can anyone tell me when the Constitution of India came into force? Very good. 26 January 1950, the Constitution of India came into force. So for time being, let us assume, because what is a constitution is something that I'm going to discuss once I give the details about the syllabus. That's the first thing that I'm going to discuss. So till this point of time, I'm not discussing anything about the constitution. I just want to give an idea about the syllabus. Now for time being, let us assume that the Constitution of India is a rule book. It's a rule book based on which our country is to be governed. Nothing more than that. Okay, you want to appear for the UPSC examination. Is there any rules that you have to follow to be successful in this examination? Is there any rules? Who conducts this civil service examination? Union Public Service Commission. And in fact, Union Public Service Commission itself is a constitutional body. So which you later understand. Now, when I talk of UPSC examination, just to make you understand the UPSC examination, is there any rules that you have to follow to be successful in this examination? The UPSC examination rule says that you'll have to clear 3 levels of examination. First, you'll have to appear for the prelims examination. Those who are successful in the prelims examination, you'll have to appear for the mains examination. Those who are successful in the mains examination, Then they have to appear for what is called as a personality test. And then if you are successful in all these cases, then your name will be there in the final list, and according to your mark, service will be allocated. These are the major rules that you will have to follow to get selected and to be successful in the UPSC examination. But this is a very small thing. This is a very small thing. I'm not saying that clearing this examination is a very small thing. But if you take a country like India and the number of problems that India might have as to how the entire country is to be governed, the UPSC examination is a very small thing. It's a very micro level. But even for this micro level, there are rules as to how it has to be done. So take the example of an entire country like India. To govern a large country like India, do you think that there is a need for a rule? And without rule, it is very difficult to govern the entire country. So therefore, who is giving the rules as to how our country has to be governed? It is the Constitution of India. So the Constitution of India gives a broader rules as to how the country is to be governed. And that Constitution was drafted by whom? Who has drafted the Constitution? The Constituent Assembly. The members of the Constituent Assembly has drafted the Constitution, and for which they have taken almost 3 years, which I subsequently discussed. They have debated, discussed for 3 years, and then they drafted the Constitution of India. So based on the rules, today the country is governed. But not every single rule is given in the Constitution. Only the broader rules are given in the Constitution. Now, the Constitution does not say as to how the examination for the UPSC examination is to be conducted. Because for the Constituent Assembly, that is not a very important thing. But the Constitution does say how the president has to be elected. Because that's a very important thing. The Constitution does say how the government is to be formed. Because that's a very important thing. So the important rules are mentioned where directly? It is there in the Constitution of India itself. But not so important rules are not there in the Constitution. The Constitution gives a power to certain other authorities to make those rules. That means there are certain things which is directly mentioned in the Constitution. But most of the things, because governing India is a very complex thing, you can understand because of the population, because of the diversity. But if you put all the things in the Constitution, then the Constitution is going to become so bulky. And then it becomes extremely difficult to manage it. So what the Constituent Assembly has done, the Constituent Assembly has given only the major things in the Constitution. But of course, that is not sufficient enough to govern the entire country. You need further rules also. Suppose let us assume that there are 1,000 rules that is required to govern India. But not all the 1,000 rules can be given in the Constitution, but they have simplified that and they have, let us assume, they have given some few rules in the Constitution. But apart from that, if they wanted to make the rules, if they have to make the law, so they have given the Constitution itself has empowered certain authorities to make the further rules. So in that way, the Constitution is only having the major rules, and whatever is given in the Constitution is part of the Constitution. But apart from the rules that is given in the Constitution, you need to have certain other rules as well. But they are not the Constitution of India. They would be considered to be what is called as the ordinary law. So therefore, try to understand whatever is given in the Constitution is called as a fundamental rule or the fundamental law. But apart from the fundamental rules or the fundamental law, you need to make other rules also. They're all called as what is called as ordinary law. And the Constitution itself empowers certain other authorities to make the ordinary law. So who is empowered under the Constitution to make this ordinary law? The Parliament and the state legislature. So whatever is made by the Parliament, law made by the Parliament, whatever is the law that is made by the state legislature, they would be considered to be what? Ordinary laws. But whatever is there in the Constitution is called as what? It is called as a fundamental law or the constitutional law. So therefore, when I use the word constitutional law, it is pointing to what is mentioned in the Constitution. And when I use the word ordinary law, it is giving what meaning? It is not directly mentioned in the Constitution. So based on the power that is given to the Parliament or the state legislature, they are making certain other laws. And they are outside the Constitution. So try to make this distinction very clear. If I use the word constitutional law, what does it mean? These are all provisions which is directly mentioned in the Constitution. When I use the word ordinary law, what is that? That is also a law, but it is made by the law-making body, that is the Parliament or the state legislature. So why I am giving this explanation is, while all these things, except the historical underpinning, that is just a story that you are going to understand what led to the Constitution of India. So apart from all those things, salient features, separation of powers, center-state relations, local bodies, constitutional bodies, of course, not the statutory bodies. Legislature, parliament, state legislature, executives, comparison of constitution across the world. These are all provisions that is directly there in the constitution. But what about the Representation of Peoples Act? It is a law that is made by the parliament. But why everything is there in the constitution, which is there in the syllabus, but only one thing that you are dealing is the Representation of People Act, which is just a law made by the parliament? Why do you think it is so important that it is given in the syllabus? Very good. That is basically dealing with what is called as the election laws. Because this Representation of People Act tells how the Election Commission of India has to carry out the elections in our country. Now you understand that in a democracy, elections are so important. Elections are considered to be festivals in a democracy. Because the very essence of democracy itself is what? What is the very essence of a democracy? Not just mere elections, but free and fair elections. If you say mere elections, then that is not an appropriate thing. It should be a free and fair election. So, in order to ensure a free and fair elections, the law gives number of rules that would allow the Election Commission of India to ensure what is called as a free and fair election. So, what does it mean by a free and fair election? Free and fair election. What does it mean by a free election? Free election means free from any malpractices. Free from any malpractices. There should not be booth capturing, there should not be rigging in the elections. If all these things are happening, then there is no purpose of what is called as elections. So there should be a free elections. What does it mean by a fair election? Level playing field for all the candidates contesting the elections. So it is not that only few people will be allowed to contest elections, others are not given the opportunity. Then it is not a fair election. So any election that happens in our country should be a free and fair election. That is what will reflect the democracy. So who is supposed to ensure the free and fair elections? Election Commission of India, and for which the Election Commission of India needs powers. So and that power is given to the Election Commission of India based on the Representation of People Act. So that's why as a student preparing for the UPSC examination, you should also have a basic idea about the Representation of Peoples Act. So here you can expect one question. Can you sum up all the questions and tell me? So this is basically your polity part. Just sum up and tell me. Sorry, judiciary is also there. So just please add one more thing. So sorry, it just skipped. So judiciary. On what? So judiciary here means we'll discuss about the Supreme Court of India, their powers, the high courts and the subordinate courts. In addition to that, we'll also deal with what is called as alternate dispute resolution, tribunals. So everything will be covered under this particular area, but one question from this particular area. So just add up all those things. How many? 13 questions, but 13 questions are not going to come. That means you never know in which area UPSC may not ask in a particular year. So it is not that from every topic there can be a question. So in certain topics, there may not be a question also. So sometimes instead of 2 questions, I'm saying maximum. Sometimes they can ask 1 question also. Sometimes they may completely skip also a particular topic. But we do not know as to in which topic the question may not come. So therefore, we'll have to be prepared in all the topics. So if a question comes, you are likely to answer. If it is a 12.5 marker, then there are 8 questions which is likely to come, 8 to 9 questions for 100 marks. Sometimes it can be more than 100 marks also. So 8 to 9 questions are likely to come from this particular area. So roughly around 100 marks. So this is what is the weightage. So this is basically the syllabus that I wanted to discuss. But I have given only the macro topic. So there can be some elaborations in the syllabus also. Please try to remember these things. Only when you remember the syllabus, tomorrow when you read certain current affairs, so for example, when you remember statutory bodies, then you might understand, okay, the Waqf amendment bill is going on dispute. You might understand that it is a very important thing. Probably you'll have to follow it. Okay, judiciary is there in the syllabus. Some judgments which is given by the Supreme Court, you'll understand it is going to be important. And when you remember parliament and lot of other subtopics, you'll understand, okay, this news article is relevant to the syllabus. So therefore, it is very important for you to remember what is called as the syllabus. All right. So this is the broader breakup for the mains. But for the prelims, UPSC has not given any broader breakup. For the prelims, whatever is there in the Indian Constitution is relevant for the students. And remember, UPSC is going to ask the broader questions. They are not going to a very specific thing. They will ask a very broad question. They'll try to assess your general understanding of the entire syllabus. So therefore, students ask me, sir, is it important for me to remember each and every article in the syllabus? Do I have to remember every article? Even if you bring the members of the Constituent Assembly, they will not remember each and every article in the Constitution of India. So therefore, it is not important. But you should remember the essence of the Indian Constitution. You may not remember a specific article, but you should understand what the provisions are. But is it important? It is not at all important for me to remember the articles. I'm not saying that. You don't have to remember all the articles, but probably around 50 articles. You can remember the entire Constitution, but it will get into your mind automatically. During the entire preparation phase, you listen in the class, then you go and revise, then you read in the newspaper. Certain important articles will automatically get into your mind. So that is not an issue. But otherwise, apart from that, you don't have to specifically remember. And I will also give a list of important articles. Around 100 important articles are listed in the class. So these things will automatically get into your mind. All right. So with that, I'll go to the first topic for us to understand as to what is a constitution. So far, any doubts? So now I am just going to, the first thing that I want to discuss is what is a constitution. If you do not have any questions, I'll get into this. So as I already said, for the first 2 to 3 classes, I'm not going to discuss anything from the syllabus. I'll make you understand as to what is a constitution, and then I'll make you understand as to what is the difference between a written constitution and an unwritten constitution. Then I'll take you through some key terms in the subject, key words that we are going to repeatedly use. And then I'll discuss about some of the features in the Indian Constitution very briefly. So this will take me 2 to 3 classes. Only after doing all those things, we'll enter into the first topic of what is called as historical underpinnings. First, I wanted to make you comfortable in all these areas. So my first question is, what is a constitution? That's the first thing that you have to understand, which I have given a basic idea. But can you tell me from your understanding what is a constitution? What does it mean by a constitution? Very good. It is the supreme rule book of our country. But my question is, why do we need a rule book? Yes, I'll just come to the question. First question is, what is a constitution? Okay. So basically, we are saying it is a rule book based on which the people in a particular country set of rules, or you can say a fundamental rule book. A fundamental rule book which is used to govern the people in a particular state, which means state means a country. When she uses the word state, it's a political science definition of state. I'll just come to that particular area. But my question is, why do we need that rule book? Now, why do we need that constitution in the first place? Is it mandatory for us to have a constitution in a civilized world? Is it mandatory? Now, what do you think will happen if India does not have a constitution? There is no law and order will be there. So you mean to say that it would be a complete chaos and anarchy? Because somebody who is very powerful, somebody is physically powerful might overpower somebody who is physically weak. Somebody who is rich might exploit the poor. So is this possible? Somebody who is dominant, a dominant caste might exploit the not so dominant caste. Somebody who is a majority might exploit the minority. So of course, all these things will lead to a complete anarchy in the absence of what is called as a rule book. So this is exactly what the members of the Constituent Assembly thought. It is not that before the Constitution of India, there was an anarchy. At that time also, we were ruled based on rules. But that is not something that we have made the rules for ourselves. That's not the people of India have made the rules for themselves. It is the Britishers who came and who ruled India, and the British Parliament has made the rules based on which the British India was governed. But then India became independent, 15th August 1947. And subsequent to that, it was decided that the people of India will rule themselves, and for which they need to have what is called as a rule book. And who drafted this rule book? This rule book was drafted by the Constituent Assembly of India. It almost took 3 years. To be very precise, I think it took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days is the duration which the Constituent Assembly worked, and they drafted the Constitution of India, which is, to put it in a very simple way, this Constitution of India is nothing but a rule book for our country. And this rule book precisely says how India is to be governed. This rule book precisely says who is to govern India. So that means there has to be someone who has to govern the people. So who is to govern India and how that government will be formed? What are the powers, responsibilities and authorities of that particular government? Is there any restriction upon that particular government? Because that government cannot turn arbitrary, because the government is chosen in the first place to rule the country. But tomorrow that government itself should not become arbitrary, and then they should not do something that would affect the people. So therefore, this constitution, that is this rule book, also lays down some limitation upon the government. So can you just think of some limitation that is imposed upon the government? Let us just break it one by one. So what basically is a constitution? What basically is a constitution? It's basically a rule book based on which the country is to be governed. So what is the first information that is given in the rule book is how the country is to be governed. So if the country is to be governed, you need to have some authorities, because first of all, you'll have to understand the rule book has to say how the country is to be governed. So basically, what type of constitution is Indian constitution? It's a democratic constitution, which I'll subsequently break it up. So democracy basically means what? Democracy basically means rule by people. So that's the simplest form I can explain what is called as democracy. That means in any constitution which calls itself to be a democratic constitution, who is the ultimate authority? The people. But do you think that you and me directly participate in ruling the country? So democracy means rule by people, but people cannot directly rule. It becomes very tedious, very difficult process if everybody's opinion is taken into consideration. Say for example, today there's a terror attack that has happened, very unfortunate incident. Now the government is planning something, and the Prime Minister has already vowed that anywhere in the earth, whoever is responsible for this, the government of India will pursue them and will put an end to them. So this is a decision that the government has taken, but you and me were not consulted in the entire process. Were we consulted? So, but democracy basically means what? Rule by people. But rule by people means, it doesn't mean that each and every individual will be consulted. If every individual is to be consulted based on which the government will decide, then that's basically what is called as direct democracy. So basically, the democracies across the world can be classified into two types of democracy. One is direct democracy and other is an indirect democracy. So what type of democracy do you think India is? It's an indirect democracy. It's not a direct democracy, because 140 crore people are there. You cannot consult each and every people. It becomes so difficult. So that's why the rule book that was drafted by the Constituent Assembly, they made, though India is a democracy, it's an indirect democracy. What do you mean by an indirect democracy? The people will elect their representatives, and that representatives will rule the country. So, but how do we know all those things? Because all these things are laid down in the Constitution of India. It is a Constitution of India which says that India is an indirect democracy. It's a Constitution of India which says that the people will elect their representatives, and the representatives rule the country on behalf of the people. So therefore, today, who are those representatives on behalf of the people? It is the elected members of Parliament from where the government is formed, and subsequently the government will decide on behalf of the people. So I'm just bringing to the basic question that the Constitution of India is what? Basically, it is a rule book. And what is the important rule that it has given as to how the country is to be governed? So who is going to govern? It's the government. So the Constitution should also give us information as to how this government is to be elected, and what are the powers and functions of this particular government, what they are supposed to do and what they are not supposed to do. Now try to understand, this government can also turn arbitrary if their powers are not restricted. So therefore, the Constitution as a part of the rules also put certain restriction upon the powers of the government. Can you just think of some examples as to what are the restriction upon the powers of the government? Say for example, the rule book provides for the fundamental rights to the citizens. So because as a fundamental right to the citizen, the government cannot do anything that would be violative of the fundamental rights. Okay, that restriction is put. Okay, despite that, if any government, be it the central or the state government, if they are doing something which is violative of the fundamental rights, then can we pursue it anywhere to protect our rights? We can go to the courts, we can go to the Supreme Court, we can go to the high courts. So that rule is also given in the Constitution. So therefore, all these broader rules are given in the Constitution of India. So what is the Constitution? To put it in a very simple way, it is a fundamental rule book based on which the country is to be governed. Is it clear to all of you? So basically, if you break it down further, you will understand that it talks about how the government is to be elected, what are the powers and responsibilities of the government. So when I say government, what would constitute the government? It is the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. The President is only a nominal executive. So how the government is to be constituted, what are the powers and responsibilities of this government, what they are supposed to do, what they are not supposed to do. So to that extent, certain rights are given to the people. And if the rights are violated, where the people can approach for the remedies. So where all these information is given. It is all given in the Constitution of India. So that is why we say the Constitution of India is what? It is a fundamental rule book. Again, the word fundamental rule book is very important. Why the fundamental rule book is very important? It is not having all the rules in our country. Say for example, how many of you have ever stopped by a traffic police? How many of you had that experience? Somebody overspeed, somebody not wearing the crash helmet, somebody not wearing the seat belt, somebody drinking and driving. So whatever may be the reason. So you have the experience of being stopped by the traffic police. Somebody might have, somebody may not have, but that's a very simple thing. Okay, so when the traffic police stops you for violating the rule, is he stopping you and demanding a fine? So based on the rules that is given in the Constitution, does the Constitution say anything about that? Do you think that the Constitution says somebody is not wearing the helmet, they should be imposed a fine? Is it a rule? Is it a law in our country? Of course, it's a law, but it is not mentioned in the Constitution. It was not so important for the Constituent Assembly to put all those things in the Constitution. But it was very important for the Constituent Assembly to write it in the Constitution itself, how one will become the Prime Minister of India. Is it very important? So how will become a member of Parliament? Is it very important? How the President is to be elected? Is it important? How the judges of the Supreme Court is to be appointed? Is it important? How the judges of the Supreme Court is to be removed? Is that important? So all these things are very important for governing the country. So those important rules are put in the Constitution itself. But that is what I am saying. So what is the Constitution? The Constitution is only the fundamental rule book. That's not the only rule book in our country. It's only the fundamental rule book which contains the most important things. But the Constituent Assembly very well knew that these rules are not sufficient enough to govern a large country like India. Apart from these rules, apart from the provisions in the Constitution, we need to have a lot of other rules to govern India. But you cannot put everything in the Constitution. And even the Constituent Assembly members may not have expertise in the other areas. So for that matter, they have given the power to certain other authorities to make the other rules. So primarily, who is given the authority to make the other rules? Other laws, that is a Parliament as well as the state legislature. So therefore, try to understand whatever rules or whatever provisions. Just to make it easy, I am using the word rules, but otherwise they are called as constitutional provisions. So whatever provisions or the rules that is given in the Constitution, they're all fundamental rules. But that is again not sufficient. You need to have a lot of other rules as well. And who is empowered by the Constitution itself to make the other rules? The Parliament as well as the state legislature. So therefore, whatever rules that is mentioned in the Constitution, they're all called as constitutional law. How do we refer to them? They're all called as constitutional law. That means they're all there in the Constitution. But apart from the constitutional law, that's not the only law. That is only the fundamental law. But apart from the Constitution, we have certain other laws as well. They are all called as what? They are called as ordinary laws. Therefore, there is a distinction between a constitutional law and an ordinary law. What is a constitutional law? Whatever is given in the Constitution, the interpretation of those constitution, not exactly whatever is given only in the Constitution is a constitutional law. The interpretation of those provisions is also constitutional law. Who gives the interpretation of those laws? The Supreme Court of India. The Supreme Court of India is the only court in our country to interpret the Constitution. They are the final authority. So the interpretation given by the courts, whatever is mentioned in the constitution, they're all called as what? The constitutional law. But apart from the constitutional law, there is also a lot of other laws. They're all commonly called as what? Ordinary laws. And who makes the ordinary laws? It is the parliament as well as the state legislature. And try to keep this as a general rule. The ordinary laws are subordinate to the constitutional law. So in the top of the hierarchy, who is at the top? It is a constitutional law and not the ordinary law, because the ordinary laws has to be in consonance with the fundamental law. You cannot make an ordinary law, that the parliament cannot make an ordinary law that will violate the fundamental right, because it is any ordinary law that is made by the parliament or the state legislature, they should be in line with what? The fundamental law or the fundamental rule book, that is the Constitution of India. So is it very clear to all of you as to what is a constitution? Is it clear? Is it very clear to all of you what is a fundamental law or a constitutional law, and then what is an ordinary law? So this basic understanding has to be very, very clear. So again, I am coming back to the first question as to what is a constitution and what is the relevance of a constitution. Is it clear? What is a constitution? It is a fundamental rule book of our country, and the word fundamental rule book is very, very important. Why I am stressing upon this fundamental rule book? The fundamental rule book is very, very important because that's not the only law in our country, but it is a fundamental law. Apart from that, other laws are what is called as the ordinary laws. So this fundamental rule book is going to deal with only the major provisions based on which the country is to be run. Okay, so please tell me, do you think that how the UPSC has to carry out the recruitment process, is that mentioned in the constitution? It is not mentioned in the constitution. The constitution only saying that there is an authority which will be called as UPSC, which will take care of the recruitment. But how it is to carry out the recruitment process is not given in the constitution itself. So only the major things will be given in the constitution. So whatever is given in the constitution is the fundamental law. Apart from that, what it is called as? They are all called as ordinary laws or subordinate laws. Okay. So what is in the supreme? It is the Constitution of India. Okay. Tell me. So let me just try to understand the basic understanding. Try to make an assessment. What is supreme in our country? Is it the executive, or in other words, is it the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers? Or is it the Parliament? Or is it the Supreme Court of India? What is supreme in our country of the three? Who is supreme? It is your opinion. What is your opinion? Is it the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers? So you might have some basic idea based on what is happening in our country. What is supreme? Is it the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers? Is it the Parliament that's a supreme authority, or is it the Supreme Court? Is it that the supreme authority? What is your assessment, your opinion? No explanation, only answer to the question. What is supreme? You may also choose none of the above. It is up to you. None of the above? Yes. Unless and until I ask for an explanation, do not give an explanation. If there is a need for an explanation, I'll ask it. Because otherwise it will unnecessarily confuse other students. You are at a very preliminary stage. So therefore, just try to answer the question. None of the above, none of the above. Any other opinion? Parliament? Who said Parliament? Okay, Parliament. Not the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. Not even the Supreme Court of India. Okay, so very good. So those who have chosen none of the above, your answer is right. None of the authorities are supreme. In India, what is supreme is the Constitution of India, that is supreme. Who is supreme in our country? It is a constitution, because it is a constitution which is a creator of all these organs. It is a constitution that creates the executives. It is a constitution which creates the Supreme Court of India. It is a constitution that creates the Parliament. It is from the Constitution of India they derive their powers. It is a Constitution of India that limits their powers also. So who is supreme in our country? So always try to remember this in your mind. Who is supreme in our country? It is the Constitution of India which is supreme. Or we are basically following the philosophy of what is called as constitutional supremacy. Each and every single authority is created by the Constitution, and they derive their authority powers from the Constitution of India. So none of the three things that I have said is supreme. It is a Constitution of India that is supreme. Is that clear? But try to understand. So it's very good that we have a constitution, and that constitution is also providing for a fundamental rules based on which the country is governed. But just tell me, if the constitution is giving some rules, say for example, the constitution is saying that we all should exercise and enjoy what is called as fundamental rights. I hope you might have heard about these fundamental rights. I'm not explaining that, but there are certain set of rights called as fundamental rights. Can you give me some examples of fundamental rights that you are aware of? These are all major themes. Can you give me a specific right? Okay, right to privacy implied under Article 21. Any other fundamental right? Right to? Okay, so right to equality, which means equality before law, is there. Right to freedom of speech and expression is there. Right to life and liberty is there. So as a citizens, we are all entitled for all these rights. Of course, right against exploitation, there are two rights, that is protection against child labor and right against exploitation, that is in terms of the forced labor, beggar and all those things, trafficking and all those things is also there. So these are all set of rights that is available. But suppose let us assume the constitution is giving all these rights, but in reality they don't exist. Let us assume that in reality people are arbitrarily arrested. In reality, let us assume that there is no equality, there is a lot of discrimination which is done by the state. In reality, let us assume there is no right to life and liberty. In reality, there is assumed that there is no right to freedom of speech and expression and set of other rights. While the constitution is guaranteeing that, but it does not actually get implemented in our country. It is not actually getting reflected in the way that the country is governed. Then do you think that that is a good scenario if that is it? Is it a right scenario? So whatever is there in the constitution has to be followed in letter and spirit. And only whatever is given in the constitution is followed in letter and spirit, then we can say that there is constitutionalism in our country. We do have a constitution, no doubt, but it is not sufficient just to have a constitution and we can say that there is constitutionalism. So when we can say that there is a constitutionalism prevailing in our country, only when the constitution is implemented in letter and spirit. So merely having a constitution does not guarantee what is called as constitutionalism. So when do we say that there is constitutionalism? Only when the provisions of the constitution is followed in letter and spirit. So not every country which has got a constitution, there exists what is called as constitutionalism. Say for example, how many of you heard about the concept of failed state? Have you ever heard of the concept of failed state? So for example, our neighboring country, Pakistan, is often referred to as what is called as a failed state. Sometimes in the newspaper, they also called this what is called as banana republic. So have you ever heard of banana republics? Sometimes even Pakistan has been referred as a banana republic. It is also called as a failed state. Certain other countries are also there. Basically, what these terms refer is that these are all considered to be what is called as there is no constitutionalism in those countries. That means they may have a constitution, but whatever is given in the constitution is not followed properly, is not implemented in letter and spirit. And that means in these countries there is no constitutionalism. So now I wanted you to make an assessment. Do you think in India there is constitutionalism? Do you think that there is a constitutionalism in our country? That means do you largely agree, except for the minor aberrations? Do you largely agree that whatever is given in the constitution is followed in letter and spirit? Do you agree with the view that we as a people of India, we do exercise our rights? And when our rights are violated, we can approach the courts and the courts can guarantee the rights. And there is a limitation upon the powers of the government as to what they can do and what they are not supposed to do. So when all these things are not only given in the constitution, but it also gets implemented practically, it also exists in reality, then we say that there exists what is called as constitutionalism. So what is constitution? You should be clear about two important concepts. What is constitution? Constitution is a fundamental rule book based on which the country is governed. And when do we say that there is constitutionalism? We say that there is constitutionalism when whatever is given in the constitution is implemented in letter and spirit. Is that clear to all of you? So therefore, the basic essence of constitutionalism is not only it gets implemented in letter and spirit, the basic essence of constitutionalism also, there is limitation upon the powers of the state. So here when I say limitation upon the powers of the state, basically limitation upon the powers of the government. So do you think that in our country there is limitation upon the powers of the government? Yes, definitely. Do you think there is a limitation upon the powers of the government as to what the government is supposed to do? Can the government, when I say government, police is part of the government. Can the police come and arbitrarily arrest the individuals? Is that possible? If they do, then we can seek remedy. It is not that they cannot do it, but if they do, can we seek remedy? Yes. So is that guaranteed in the constitution? Is it also implemented in letter and spirit? Yes. So can we say that there is constitutionalism in our country? Yes. Can the government arbitrarily take away the property of an individual? It's not possible. There is remedy for that also. So now try to understand that when do we say that there is constitutionalism, that the constitution is implemented in letter and spirit, and it also implies that there is a limitation upon the powers of the government. Is that clear to all of you? So two important things: what is constitution, what is constitutionalism. Okay, so often I use a word state. So when I use a word state, that's a political science meaning to that particular word state. So let us try to understand that as well, because UPSC sometimes asks this also. So when I use a word state, basically it refers to a nation. That is what political science, or politically it would mean that it refers to a nation. But it is not only that a nation, but it should satisfy certain other characteristics also when I use the word state. So what are the things that, as per the definition of political scientists, what does it mean by a state? So first of all, it should have a defined territory. So there are four important characteristics. There are some element of differences, but largely four important characteristics when I use the word state in the words of the political scientist. One, it should have a defined territory. Not only a defined territory, it should have a set of people who are permanently residing in that particular area. So that means it should have people, a community of people, a defined territory. And then the third important feature is they should have a government of their own. It can be any type of government, not necessarily a democratic government, but they should have a government of their own. So what are the three important things that you have seen? It should have a defined territory. It should have a community of people. They should have a government of their own. Again, I am repeating it. Don't confuse that it should be a democratic government. Not necessarily. It should have a government of their own. Any type of government. And then apart from that, that authority or the government or whatever the authority in that particular state should also be a sovereign authority. So sovereignty is also one of an important aspect. What does it mean by sovereign authority? That they are free from any external influence. So they make decisions for themselves. They will decide as to how they have to govern. So they are free from any external influence, a sovereign authority. So these are all the four important factors that would make up what is called as a state. I'll just repeat that once again. What are the four important characteristics? One is they should have a defined territory. They should have a community of people residing there. And then they should have a government of their own. And then that authority should be a supreme authority or sovereign authority, which means they are free from any external influence. Then that makes up the definition of what is called as state. And that's a definition that is given by the political scientist for larger nations. But tomorrow when I get into Indian polity, then when I refer to a union government and a state government, that's not a political science definition of state. There I am referring to a particular state in our country. So this is a political science definition of a state, which is other words which is called as a country or a nation. Okay, so this is a basic understanding you should have. Now, even from whatever I discussed, UPSC has asked a couple of questions in your prelims examination, of course, not in your mains examination. Just if you have the conceptual clarity of whatever I discussed right now, you should be in a position to solve these two questions. Okay, I'll just go to the questions. Okay, look into the questions. I wanted you to give the answer. I'm not going to solve this. So you are the one who are going to solve this particular question. So give me the answer for this particular question. Let me go that side. Okay, constitutional government means. So this particular question has been repeated at least last 4 to 5 times in the last 10 years. Okay, so just try to answer this particular question. A constitutional government means. What is the appropriate answer? A constitutional government means a government limited by the terms of the constitution. Is it clear? A constitutional government, it means nothing more than the idea of constitutionalism. So if there exists constitutionalism in a particular country, then that's a constitutional government. So what is the very essence of a constitutional government? That basically that whatever is given in the constitution should get implemented letter and spirit, and for that there exists some kind of limitation upon the powers of the government. So what is the right answer here? A government which is limited by the terms of the constitution. Is that clear? That's a basic understanding you should have, and anytime this question might again get repeated. And UPSC has certain important areas where they keep repeatedly asking the question, but they may change the sentences here and there, nothing more than that, but they'll keep repeating it. The other areas are right now not important for you, because right now many of the students may not be able to understand that, so I'm not getting into that. But in the future, when I solve the questions, I'll try to solve all the statements. But right now, try to have the right answer. Okay. So this is going to be even little difficult for you, but if you understood whatever I said, it is also easier for you. So just try to read this. Which one of the following best defines the term state among the four options? Take your time, and this is very, very important. Do not hurry in answering the questions. Take your time and try to answer the question. Is it not visible for some of you? You can change your position accordingly. So okay, so your option is A. Let us wait for the others option also. A? A? I want the explanation from any one of you if you are choosing any of your options. Somebody who chosen A, why A and not the other options? Or maybe for someone it is B. But just try to remember the four characteristics that I've said. See, UPSC might sometimes ask a question where all the four options might appear correct. But in that particular case, you'll have to go for the most appropriate. In terms of degree, which is the most appropriate one, you'll have to choose that. Which one of the following best defines the term state? You have another 30 seconds. Take your time and then give me the answer. I want each and every one of you to try it. What is more important is you try it. If you can make mistakes, that is not an issue, and then you can later rectify that. And it is even good that you make mistakes right now, so that you do not make mistakes in the examination. But if you do not make an attempt, then you are going to directly make the mistakes in the examination. All right. So okay, so most of you are saying it is A. Somebody might have certain other opinion also. So anyone who thinks B? Okay, some of you B. Anyone who thinks C or D? So the confusion is only between A and B. Okay, so anyways, okay. I'll eliminate these two options. Okay, so now let us go to A and B. Okay, now let us go to a community of persons. Community of persons, so it is satisfying the category of people. So one of the important characteristics to fall within the definition of state. Occupying a definite territory, is it satisfying territory? Independent of external control, so it is also making that particular authority sovereign, and it is possessing an organized government. I said that it can be any form of organized government, not necessarily a democracy. Okay, so it is having an organized government, yes. So it is having a government, and then here we understand it is independent of external control, so we can assume that it is also sovereign. Is it satisfying all the four things that you have seen? So now come to the statement B, because somebody is also saying that the answer is option B. A politically organized people. So it is saying politically organized people. Okay, let us assume it is people. Although it is little vague in terms of what is politically organized people. Okay, so here also it is satisfying. So this is for option A. I am putting A. So for all the four things are satisfying in A. So for B, yes, you have people. A definite territory is there. So okay, so both the things are getting for B. You have people, you have definite territory, and possessing an authority to govern. So government is also there. So the third criteria is also maintaining law and order, protect their natural rights, safeguard their means of sustenance. But however, the problem with B is it is not explicitly talking anything about the sovereign authority. So which is even more expressive about the sovereignty? It is option A. So you cannot completely rule out option B, but between A and B, which is the most appropriate thing, it is option A, because it's more explicit in terms of the sovereign rights. So therefore, what is the most appropriate answer? It is option A, and UPSC key also says it is option A. Alright, so we'll have to look out for the most appropriate things sometimes, because the options could be little close and there's scope for making mistakes. So be clear about all those things. That's why you should have the proper conceptual clarity. So from today's class, 2 questions in previous year questions can be solved just from the 2 concepts that I've said. And if a question comes, again they are going to come from the same area only. Maybe they will modify the statements a little, but you should be very clear about the concepts. So is it clear to all of you as to what is a constitution? Is it clear to all of you as to what is constitutionalism? And when do we say that there is constitutionalism in any country for that matter? When the constitution is implemented in letter and spirit, which also means that there is a limitation upon the powers of the state. And what is the political science definition of state? What are the characteristics it should satisfy? There should be a definite territory, a community of people, and then you have established government, and then it should be a sovereign authority. So just try to remember all those things. So now we will get into some of the okay, so before I get into some of the features of the Indian Constitution, I also wanted you to explain between what is called as a written and an unwritten constitution. Now, what type of constitution India has? A written constitution. So if you look into the constitutions across the world, there are basically 2 types of constitution. One is a written constitution, another is an unwritten constitution. Most of the countries today, they have got what is called as a written constitution, and some of the countries do have what is called as an unwritten constitution. And you all know that India is the lengthiest known written constitution in the world. So basically, can anyone tell me, based on your limited understanding, if you know, it's well and fine, but I do understand most of the students might have a limited understanding. What is the difference between a written and an unwritten constitution? Is there a difference between a written and an unwritten constitution? Okay, as the name suggests, written constitution is written down, unwritten constitution is not written down. All right, so this is exactly what we'll have to understand. So it's quite clear, written means it is written, unwritten means it is not written. Or in other words, let me put, written constitution is codified and unwritten constitution is not codified. Is that true? How many of you think that is true? That the written constitution is codified. Codified means written down. It's printed, let us assume it is printed somewhere, or it is written somewhere, whatever it is. An unwritten constitution means it is not written anywhere, or it is not codified. Is that the understanding? How many of you think yes, the written constitution is written, unwritten constitution is unwritten? Is that correct? Yes or no? Please raise your hand. How many of you think yes, written constitution is written, unwritten constitution is unwritten? So that is what you said. So how many of you agree with this version? What is their name? Shobin. So Shobin is saying written constitution is written, unwritten constitution is unwritten. I think most of you are also agreeing to that. So from your expression, that is what I can understand. What is your name? Shrivas. So do you agree with that? You don't agree with that? You don't agree. What about you? You don't agree? You also don't agree? Okay. So some of you are in agreement with what Shobin has said, and some of you not in agreement. Some of you not in agreement with what he has said. Okay, so can you give me an example of an unwritten constitution if you know it? Okay, so let us take the example also. So in case of India, we have a written constitution. Indian constitution is a written constitution. The constitution of United Kingdom, the constitution of Israel, they're all unwritten constitution. Does it mean that in case of United Kingdom, there is nothing written anywhere when you say it is an unwritten constitution? No, my question is whether it is written or not. It is codified or not. So try to understand, unwritten constitution doesn't mean that it is not codified. So the basic difference between a written constitution and an unwritten constitution is, a written constitution is something which is codified into a single document or multiple document, whatever it is. It is a single document or it can be multiple document, but only those documents constitute the constitution. So in case of India, it is a multiple document or a single document? Single document. But not necessarily only a single document has to be there. It can be in couple of volumes also. It can be volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, whatever be it. But in case of India, there is only one document. So a written constitution is something, just try to comprehend this. A written constitution is something where the constitution is codified either into a single or multiple documents. But apart from that, nothing else is a constitution. And so basically only those codified version would constitute what is called as the Constitution of India, or for that matter, constitution of any country where it is a written constitution. So the key word that you should remember is what? It is codified into a single document or multiple documents. Whatever be the case, apart from those things, the other things would not constitute the constitution. But whereas what is a unwritten constitution? An unwritten constitution is also codified. It is also codified, but it is not codified into a single document or a multiple document. That means the basic understanding you should have. In case of UK also, the constitution is codified. It is not that it is not codified. Here it is codified. But it is not codified either into a, it is not codified into a single document or even into a multiple document, or in other words, there is nothing specifically what is called as a constitution. That's a key difference that you'll have to understand. That means if I have to further elaborate, you'll have to read with this particular thing. In India, do you think there is a difference between what is called as a constitutional law and an ordinary law? Can you give me an example of, just listen to me a little further to understand the difference. So what did I say about the constitutional law in case of India? Whatever the provisions that is there in the constitution, whatever is the provisions in the constitution, whatever the provisions in the constitution, let me just write it further. Whatever is the provision in the constitution. Apart from the provisions in the constitution, what did I say? The interpretations given by the courts. So whenever any provision is vague, who is going to give the interpretations? The interpretations given by the courts, these are all considered to be the constitutional law. Now in case of India, do you think the constitution is codified? In case of India, the constitution is codified into a single document. Apart from that, do we have ordinary laws? So what are the ordinary laws? Can you give me examples of ordinary laws in our country? Very good. The IPC, which has been renamed right now, but for the ease of understanding to all the students, I just continue to use IPC. You have something which is called as CRPC, Criminal Procedure Code, Indian Penal Code. Can you give me examples of other laws? Very good. Representation of People's Act, Indian Evidence Act, Income Tax Act. Very good. Any other law? Income Tax Act, Right to Information Act, RTI Act, Lokpal Act. Any other act? Very good. Prevention of Corruption Act. So to name a few, there are thousands of ordinary laws. We're not there to discuss all the things, just to give you some experience. Okay, now in this case, the ordinary laws, now let me just discuss about this. Are they codified? Are they written down? Are they codified? Published in the official gazette? They are also codified. So here also it is codified. Here also it is codified. Let's just talk about the Indian Constitution. It is codified. This is also codified. Something written in the Constitution. The ordinary laws also codified. They are also written down. But what do you think is the difference between them? they are codified in the constitution, they are codified as ordinary laws. So that is why we call them as a constitutional law and we call them as an ordinary law. So wherever there is a written constitution, try to understand this. Wherever there is a written constitution, the basic difference that you have to understand is that there is a distinction between what is called as an ordinary law and a constitutional law. What would constitute their constitution is only whatever is written in the constitution. It can be in one single document or multiple documents. That is not the issue. But in case of India, how much document we have? How many documents? Only one single document. And whatever is there in the constitution, they are all codified and they would constitute what is called as a constitutional law. But apart from the constitution, there's a lot of other ordinary laws. They are also codified. So they're all, but they're called as ordinary laws. So in any written constitution, there would be a distinction between a constitutional law and an ordinary law. That's a fundamental difference. Is that clear? So do we have a distinction in our country as to what is a constitutional law and what is an ordinary law? Whatever is there in the constitution is a constitutional law. Outside the constitution, they're all called as ordinary laws. But this distinction is likely to exist wherever there's a written constitution. But in both the cases, it is codified. But now come to an unwritten constitution. We said that in case of United Kingdom, it's an unwritten constitution. There also the constitution is codified. But what is the fundamental difference when it comes to an unwritten constitution is that there is no distinction between a constitutional law and what is an ordinary law. Whereas in case of a written constitution, what is the distinction? What distinction exists? There's a distinction between constitutional law and an ordinary law. That distinction does not exist when it comes to what is called as an unwritten constitution, because every law that is enacted by the British Parliament is part of their constitution. Every judgment that is given by the British courts, that is part of their constitution. But in case of India, what would constitute the constitution? Only whatever is drafted by the Constituent Assembly. Only the interpretation that is given by the courts with regard to the constitution. Only the amendments that is done to the constitution. They all would constitute what is called as a constitutional law. Apart from all the other laws would constitute what? The ordinary laws. But that distinction does not exist in case of an unwritten constitution. Unwritten constitution does not mean that they are not codified, but they are not codified as to a constitutional law and separately as an ordinary law. Any law that is enacted by the British Parliament would automatically become part of their constitution. Say, for example, do you know when the Constitution of United Kingdom, what is the genesis of the Constitution of United Kingdom? In fact, they have the longest constitutional history in the entire world, but they continue to be an unwritten constitution. When did we have a constitution? 1950. To be very precise, 26 January 1950. When did USA, which is the first written constitution in the world, when did they had their constitution? In the end of, I think, 18th century. So approximately they have a history of little less than 250 years. That is their constitutional history. India having a history of around 75 years. But do you know when is the Constitution of United Kingdom? What is their history? Which century? Very good. 13th century. The Constitution of United Kingdom, the genesis of the Constitution of United Kingdom came way back in 1215, when the first historic document was signed between the British King John and some of his nobles, the royal nobles. They signed an agreement, which is also called as a Magna Carta. How many have heard of this word Magna Carta? Magna Carta is basically what is called as a great document, a great charter. And what is the objective of this Magna Carta? Some of you might have heard about this Magna Carta. Magna Carta. So what is this Magna Carta? It's a charter. It's basically a document. It's basically a document which has been signed between the British king and some of his nobles. Nobles, I do understand that you understand the word nobles. Big, maybe to put in a very simple word, big zamindars or landlords, probably in a similar version in India. The nobles and the king has signed a document that came to be what is called as the Magna Carta way back in 1215 to protect the rights of the nobles and to protect the rights of the ordinary people from any arbitrary action of the king. That's the genesis of the constitutional history in United Kingdom. Before that, there was no constitution even in United Kingdom, and gradually it evolved over a period of time. And then today they are governed based on their constitution. But however, from that point of time till this point of time, in United Kingdom, it is an unwritten constitution. That means right from 1215, the Magna Carta, and in 2025, if any law is enacted by the British Parliament, everything is part of their constitution. Is that clear to all of you? In 1215, Magna Carta was signed. That's the starting point of their constitution. That constitution kept on expanding, and it included all the laws that is enacted by the British Parliament. Everything is codified, but there's no distinction between what is called as a constitutional law and an ordinary law. But whereas in India, is there a distinction between a constitutional law and an ordinary law? Of course, there's a distinction, because we had a constitution in 1950, and then subsequently we have made some amendments to the constitution. How many times the constitution of India has been amended? What is the latest amendment that has happened to the constitution? Okay, so not the exact amendment. I'm just looking into the number of amendments till this point. You are right. The latest amendment is related to the women's reservation. 10. Very good. 106 times the constitution has been amended. The latest amendment is 106th amendment, which has happened last year, 2024. It was notified by the President of India. Very good. 106 times. So what would constitute the Constitution of India? It is whatever the constitution that came into force on 26 January 1950, plus the amendments that has happened to the constitution. Amendment means changes to the constitution. So all these things would be part of the constitutional law or the Constitution of India. But apart from that, we have made thousands of laws. The Parliament has enacted thousands of laws, but they are not part of the constitution. They are merely what is called as ordinary laws. So basically, students have a misunderstanding that a written constitution means codified, unwritten constitution means uncodified. No. So contrary to your understanding, written constitution means what? Written constitution means it is codified into a single document or multiple document. Only that constitutes a constitution. But whereas in an unwritten constitution, there also the laws are codified, but there's no distinction between an ordinary law as well as a constitutional law. So every law that is enacted by the British Parliament becomes part of their constitution. But do you think that every law that is enacted by the Indian Parliament becomes part of the constitution? No. Every law that is enacted by the Parliament only becomes part of an ordinary law, not a constitutional law. What becomes part of the constitutional law? Only those things which is part of the constitution. But in both the cases, they are codified. Is it clear to all of you? So now that brings us to another distinction between a written constitution and an unwritten constitution. The next important difference between a written constitution and unwritten constitution is most of the cases generally a written constitution is rigid in character. What does it mean by rigid in character? That means it is not so easy. I would not say it is extremely difficult, but it is not so easy to make changes to the constitution. If at all you want to make changes to the constitution, it is not an easy process. I'm not saying that you cannot make changes at all, but it is not an easy process. In the history of 75 years, how many times the Constitution of India has been amended? 106 times. That means it is almost one amendment or a little more than one amendment in a year. It is not so easy to amend the constitution, but an unwritten constitution, it's an extremely flexible constitution because it is so easy for the Parliament to amend their constitution. So this is a general rule. And in case of United States of America, do you know how many amendments have happened to the Constitution of United States of America? You see in the last 250 years, their amendments has been somewhere around 30 amendments, if not the exact number. That means their amendment is even more very difficult because for every 10 years, they have just made one amendment. So it's an extremely difficult process. They are also written constitution. But for the British Parliament, it is not so difficult. Now, why I'm saying is, in most of the written constitution, the procedure to amend the constitution is extremely difficult. In an unwritten constitution, the procedure is extremely easy. So therefore, mostly the written constitutions are what? They are rigid in character, whereas an unwritten constitution is flexible in character. So these are the basic understanding you should have. At least you should understand the basic essence of what is a written constitution and an unwritten constitution. So what is the basic difference between a written and an unwritten constitution? When do you say that the constitution is a written constitution? When there is a basic distinction between what is called as an ordinary law and a constitutional law. It is not necessarily that the constitution is codified into a single document. It can be multiple documents also, but there has to be a distinction between what is called as a constitutional law and an ordinary law. Is that distinction exist in our country? So India does have a written constitution. Yes, because we do have a constitutional law and we also have what is called as an ordinary law. What would constitute the constitutional law? Can anyone explain based on your understanding? What are all the things that is part of the constitutional law? Of course, fundamental rights, but in general, what are the things that would come under the constitutional law? All the provisions of the constitution, interpretations of those provisions by the courts, by the Supreme Court, and of course, amendments to the constitution. So they're all part of the constitutional law. What is the ordinary law? Any legislation or law enacted by the parliament or by the state legislature. They're all ordinary laws which is outside the constitution of India. So this distinction does exist in case of what is called as a written constitution, and this distinction does not exist in case of what is called as an unwritten constitution. Is it clear? In unwritten constitution, every law that is enacted by the parliament become part of the constitution. So example I already given. Starting 1215, the signing of Magna Carta, until this point of time, any law that is enacted by the British Parliament is part of their constitution. But do you think that all the law that is enacted by the Indian Parliament is part of the constitution? No. After 1950, whatever law that is enacted by the Indian Parliament is only ordinary law. And the constitution is which came into force on 26 January 1950. And subsequent amendments that has happened to the constitution, they are all part of the constitutional law. Is it clear? Because amendments, where the amendments happen, it happens to the constitution. Because whatever amendment that you do, it reflects in the constitution of India. Of course, they're all mentioned in the constitution. That is why the word amendments. So, for example, today we have what is called as right to education. Right to education, does anyone know when this right to education become a fundamental right? Under Article 21A of the Constitution. If you know it, it's okay. Otherwise, I'll give you the information. Do you know when this Article 21A was inserted into the Constitution? Article 21A was not part of the original Constitution when it came into force on 26 January 1950. And this was inserted by the 86th Constitutional Amendment Act in 2002. So before that, there was no right to education. But this Article 21A is now there in the Constitution of India. Therefore, it is also part of the constitutional law. Is that clear to all of you? Because amendments do reflect in the Constitution. So that is why it is part of the constitutional law. Okay. So this is the basic understanding, and in general, across the world, written constitutions are rigid, which means to make changes to a written constitution, the process is difficult. But the unwritten constitutions are flexible in nature, which means unwritten constitution can be easily changed because the process that is followed is extremely easy. Is it clear to all of you? So this is basically what you'll have to understand. So three important areas that you have understood. One is, first we have tried to understand as to what is a constitution. Is that clear to all of you? And then you have tried to understand the principle of constitutionalism. And this is very important. Not every country which has got a constitution, there will exist constitutionalism. Constitutionalism will exist only when the constitution is implemented in letter and spirit. And also the constitution provides for the limitation upon the powers of the government. Then you can say that there is constitutionalism. We also understood the political science definition of what is called as state. And now we are trying to understand as to what is the basic difference between a written and an unwritten constitution. Is the Constitution of India a written constitution? Is the Constitution of United Kingdom a written constitution? United Kingdom, is that a written constitution? It's an unwritten constitution. So basically, what is the difference between these two constitutions? What is the basic distinction that differentiates between these two constitutions, that makes Constitution of India a written constitution, and what makes the Constitution of United Kingdom an unwritten constitution? Distinction between the constitutional law and the ordinary law. Do that distinction exist in India? Do such distinction exist in United Kingdom? In both the cases, are they codified? Yes, they are codified. But the only distinction is that if the distinction of ordinary law and the constitutional law exist, and then that becomes what is called as a written constitution. If they don't exist, then it becomes what is called as an unwritten constitution. And in general, the written constitutions are what? They're all rigid in character, and the unwritten constitution are flexible in character. All right. Yeah. So this is also very important. Not necessarily that to constitutionalism to exist, you need to have a written constitution. An unwritten constitution also can pave way for what is called as constitutionalism. What is constitutionalism? Constitutionalism means whatever is in their constitution, it has to be implemented in letter and spirit. So not necessarily for that particular purpose, you need to have a written constitution. For example, in India, we have a written constitution. Is there constitutionalism? In Pakistan, they have a written constitution. But in general, the political scientists say there is no constitutionalism. So having a written constitution is no guarantee to have what is called as constitutionalism. And even a country which has got unwritten constitution, they may have constitutionalism. Say, for example, in United Kingdom, there is constitutionalism. In Israel, there is constitutionalism. So it is not mandatory to have what is called as a written constitution to have what is called as constitutionalism. And a written constitution is no guarantee that there is a constitutionalism. Okay, is that clear to all of you? So these are all the basic understanding you should have. So constitutionalism means whatever is in their constitution, be it written constitution or unwritten constitution, it should be implemented in what is called as letter and spirit. All right. So I'm sure that these basic concepts are clear to all of you. So now we'll move further. Let us try to understand few key features of the Indian democracy. This will go on for another couple of classes. So then only I'll get into the first topic. And your first topic will start from, for the polity, as a subject, it will start from what is called as the preamble. And even before that, I'll deal with historical underpinnings. That will take me another couple of classes. To get into your preamble, it will take me 4 classes. So, but all these basic understandings are important, which will help you to comprehend the things further. All right. So just take a couple of minutes, just go through it. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. And then I'll start with the first topic of what is called as democracy. I'll try to cover few topics today. Any questions? Shall we move forward? Yes. Both are one and the same. So I would say that every government authorizes a legitimate way of writing it down. So for example, today the government of India publishes in its official gazette. So once they get the seal of the official gazette, that means it is put down in writing so that everybody knows what is the law. So once that is published in the official gazette, we say that it is codified and it is circulated to the people. Say for example, we should know the law. I should know, or you should know what is the Constitution of India, and that has to be given the legitimacy by the certain authority. So once authority signs it, after it is codified, written down, and they sign it, and then they publish it, then it is coming from a legitimate authority. So that becomes a law of the land. So codified means basically it is written down, approved by the legitimate authority. And unwritten does not mean that they are not written down. They are written down, or they are codified, approved by the legitimate authority. But the basic distinction between written and unwritten is that the distinction of the ordinary law as well as what is called as the constitutional law does exist in a written constitution. That does not exist in an unwritten constitution. All right. Shall I move forward? Provision means in a law there can be number of provisions. So law is a very general abstract term. So for example, the Constitution of India is a law. It's a fundamental law. But within the Constitution of India, there are hundreds of provisions. Every single article is a provision. So that's a subset of the broader term that is what is called as law. Okay. Ordinary law. Ordinary law is flexible than the constitutional law. Yes, true. Because the process to amend the ordinary law is much easier. And the process to amend the constitution is much difficult. So yes, ordinary laws are flexible. But when I say that the unwritten constitution, in unwritten constitution, there is no distinction between constitutional law and an ordinary law. So therefore, everything is flexible. But in case of a written constitution, the ordinary law is flexible, but the constitutional law is rigid. Okay. Shall I move forward? Okay, so please come to the first topic, that is democracy. So at least I'll try to cover 2-3 topics before we meet in the next class. But one thing I'll sincerely suggest is you please go home and today revise whatever has been completed in the class. If you do that on a daily basis, your preparation will become much easier. But if you start accumulating that even for 3-4 classes, then you will not be able to cover it up. Because in 3-4 classes, if you go today and revise it, most of the things that I discussed will be fresh in your mind, and you will be able to connect with whatever I discussed in the class and whatever notes you have taken or whatever is there in the handout. But if you don't do that on a daily basis, some of the things you will forget, and then you will not be able to clarify that. Most of the times you will not come and ask me. So that is, as a student, you might come and ask, but not everything that is there in your mind. So it's better that you do it on a daily basis. All right. So please come to the next topic, that is democracy. Okay, so I wanted to some opinion from you as to what is your understanding of the word democracy. So one thing that I said is ruled by people. That is basically what is called as the democracy. So do you have any way of explaining democracy? Why do you have to study about democracy? And that I'm doing it under the salient features of our constitution. Is democracy a salient feature of our constitution? Yes? Sure? Okay, so the first thing is democracy. What do you understand by democracy? It's a form of government. Very good. It's a form of government. There are multiple forms of government. We don't have to worry about the other forms of government, because under the Constitution of India, the Constitution of India as a rule has said that any government that will be established in our country would be a democratic government. Apart from the democratic form of government, there are also other forms of government. Say, for example, monarchy is there, autocracy is there, dictatorship is there. So basically, they're all non-democratic. If you can put it in different ways, I won't say monarchy is a non-democratic form of government, because within monarchy there are two forms of monarchy. One is absolute monarchy, and other is constitutional monarchy. Well, a constitutional monarchy comes under democracy, but the other forms of government comes under non-democratic forms of government. So basically, what is the difference between democracy and the non-democratic forms of government is, so democracy, the ultimate authority is people, but it may not be the case in the other forms of democracy. But the Constitution of India provides for a democratic form of government. If you divide democracy, there are two types of democracy. One is direct democracy, and other is indirect democracy. But in all the cases, democracy means ruled by people. Ruled by people, that is the essence of democracy. When I say direct democracy, it is a direct rule by people. When I say indirect democracy, it is ruled by people but may not be directly by people. So while the people might delegate this power to some other authority in an indirect democracy. But today, largely, if you see across the constitutions in different countries, there's no direct democracy. Mostly they follow what is called as indirect democracy because of the complexity of the governance. It's not easy for people to decide everything. Now today the population of every country runs in crores, so you cannot consult each and opinion of each and every citizen of that particular country before arriving at a decision. So therefore, most of the countries allows for what is called as indirect democracy. India also follows what is called as indirect democracy, which is also called as representative form of democracy. Representative form of democracy, which means people elect their representatives, give the power to the representatives. So who get to decide as to what is to be done? The representatives will decide on behalf of the people. I'll just come to that particular area. But before I get into all those things, so democracy basically means ruled by people. And for any democracy to qualify, for any constitution to qualify as a democratic constitution, it has to satisfy certain features. Unless and until it satisfies certain features, you cannot consider that particular constitution to be a democratic constitution. So how many of you agree that India is a democratic constitution? Yes. The essence of democratic constitution is there in almost many provisions in the constitution. But we already seen that having a mere constitution will not qualify that as what is called as constitutionalism. If only that is implemented in letter and spirit, it will qualify as what is called as constitutionalism. And how many of you agree that there exists constitutionalism in our country? So when you agree that there is constitutionalism, you also agree that the democratic credentials are getting implemented. So when you say that India is a democratic constitution, when you say that our country is governed by people, that there is ruled by people, although it is an indirect democracy, it has to satisfy certain essential features to qualify as what is called as a democracy. So can you just think of certain important characteristics that would make India as a democratic constitution? What are the basic things that has to be there to ensure or to qualify as a democratic constitution? Very good. Right to vote. So, okay. So first I would say that in case of the democracy, the first and foremost thing is there should be periodic elections. Do you not think that there should be periodic elections in a democracy? When I say periodic election, means elections at a regular interval. Even if there are elections, suppose that doesn't mean even if there are elections, but the election happens once in 100 years. The democracy, a constitution is saying, okay, the election will happen once in 100 years. Then some of them may not get the right to vote in the first place, because election is happening once in 100 years. That would not amount or reflect what is called as a democracy. So one of the important feature of a democracy is that there should be periodic elections. Do you think that the Constitution of India provides for periodic elections? Yes. Every 5 years. Very good. Every 5 years elections happens to form the government at the union and to the state level, state elections as well. So therefore, there is a provision for periodic elections, which is one of the important feature to qualify as a democracy. Okay, periodic elections is not the only thing, but it should also be what is called as free and fair elections. So the constitution also should ensure what is called as free and fair election. Does the constitution allows for free and fair elections? So one thing that we all agreed, yes, there's a periodic elections. Every 5 years there is elections at the union level. That is, there is election to the Lok Sabha, and every 5 years there is also election to the state legislature. So yes, periodic elections are there, but it should also be free and fair elections. Free election means it should be free from any form of malpractices. That there should not be booth capturing, there should not be rigging in the elections, there should not be use of money or muscle power in the elections that can manipulate the outcome of the elections. These are all would amount to what is called as free elections. So does the constitution ensure free elections? How do you think that the constitution ensure free elections? Can you just think, how do you think that the constitution ensure free elections in our country? Very good. So there's a separate constitutional body who conducts elections in our country. Election Commission of India. Is Election Commission of India under the control of Government of India? Is it under the control of Government of India? It is not under the control of Government of India. It is an independent body. The Constituent Assembly members, when they are drafting the constitution, they know they could have given the power to the government to conduct the elections. If the government conducts the elections, what is the issue? If the government conducts the election, then it may not be a free and fair election. I'm not saying it will not be. It may not be a free and fair elections, because the government in power might have vested interest for them to win the elections. So there could be an unfair election. So in order to avoid that, who is given the authority to carry out the elections in our country? The Election Commission of India, which is an independent body, which is not controlled by the government, which directly derives the powers from where? From the Constitution of India. So this is to ensure what is called as free as well as fair elections. While free election is free from any malpractice, fair election means that everybody is given an opportunity to contest the election, provided we possess the qualification. So there should not be any arbitrary discrimination in who can contest the elections. Do you think that there's a fair elections in our country also? Yes, people across religion, people across caste, they can also contest the election. That is what is free and fair elections. So periodic elections, free and fair elections, and what is other important essential of a democracy? What is other important essential? More than that, first they should be given the right to vote. Okay, choice comes later, only when they have the right to vote. So the most important thing to qualify as a democracy is universal adult suffrage. Have you heard of this? So without that, there is no democracy. Universal adult suffrage. Universal adult suffrage or universal adult franchise. That means basically the right to vote to every eligible adult individual. So do we have all these things under the constitution? There are a number of provisions that provide for all those things. I'm not going into a specific provision, but in general, do you think that all these things are available under the Constitution of India? So do we have periodic elections? Do we have free and fair elections? Do we exercise and enjoy universal adult suffrage? That means all adult individuals who attained 18 years of age, they shall have the right to vote in our country. So which is also guaranteed in the constitution. So do you think that India can be rightly called as a democracy? Because these things are ensured in the constitution of India. By using the universal adult suffrage, we can vote in the elections. Because of the right that is given, we can contest the elections also. And then the Election Commission of India would ensure a free election because of the power that is entrusted upon the Election Commission of India. And the Election Commission of India will carry out all these things in a periodic process. So ultimately, who get to decide who will form the government in our country? By exercising our right to vote and by the Election Commission of India by ensuring free and fair elections, it is the people who get to decide as to who will form the government. So therefore, can we say that there is a democracy in our country? Yes, but however, the democracy is what is called as an indirect democracy, not a direct democracy. And what type of indirect democracy we have got? We have what is called as a parliamentary democracy. So that takes us to the next discussion, that is what is called as parliamentary democracy. So with regard to democracy, is it very clear? So what is democracy? Basically means ruled by people. And also there are certain characteristics it has to satisfy. What are the characteristics to qualify as a democracy? Periodic elections, free and fair elections, and also it should be there should be universal adult suffrage. Universal adult suffrage means every adult individual shall have the right to vote. How many of you voted in the elections? In any elections, Lok Sabha or the state assembly elections, you voted in the elections. That means you also practically exercised your right. That's because the constitution guarantees these rights, because in a democracy that is essential. Is that clear to all of you? All right. So we'll move forward, we'll try to understand the next keyword, that is what is called as parliamentary democracy. With parliamentary democracy, your understanding will be much more clear. If you have any doubts, you can ask me before I move to the next topic. Do not interrupt me in the middle. You can wait. When I ask you to ask the doubt, you can ask me the doubt. Shall I move forward to the next thing? That is parliamentary democracy. So basically, the simplest way of putting democracy is ruled by people. You might have heard that it is a rule for the people, of the people, and by the people. So that is ruled by people. So it's basically ultimately who is the supreme authority? It is the people. It is the people who elect the government, and it is the government which has to work for the people, and it is the people who can remove that particular government also. But all these things are applicable in case of a direct democracy. But India is not a direct democracy. What kind of democracy is India? Indirect democracy. In an indirect democracy, try to understand, the people do not directly have the power to control the government. The people will elect their representatives, and the representatives, once the representatives are elected, that means once the representatives are elected, people are delegating this power to the representatives, and the power will be exercised by whom on behalf of the people? The representatives of the people. And now the question is, where do these representatives go? People elect the representatives, and where the representatives will go and function? The representatives will be there in the Parliament of India. So where do the representatives, and who are the representatives who are elected by the people? It is the members of the Parliament. And on behalf of the people, who is exercising these powers in a democracy, the kind of democracy that India has got? It is the members of the Parliament, and that is why it is called as parliamentary democracy. Is it clear to all of you why India is called as parliamentary democracy? I'll explain that a little further. Okay, so before we understand the parliamentary democracy, can anyone tell me, after the commencement of the constitution, how many times? Okay, so even before that, can anyone tell me what does the Parliament of India constitutes as per the constitution? What are the components of the Indian Parliament? The President is an integral part of the Parliament. How many of you think the President is also part of the Parliament? Sure. Okay, so the Parliament consists of what? The Parliament consists of the Lok Sabha, which is also called as what? Which is also called as the House of the People. It is called as the House of the People because who elect these members? The people directly elect. They are representing the people of India, House of People. Anyways, I'm not going to explain all those things because I'll explain all those things when I go to the legislature part. Right now, not. Right now, I just want to explain the concept of the parliamentary democracy. So apart from that, it also has what is called as Rajya Sabha, which is also called as what? Council of States. Why it is called as Council of States? Because they don't represent the people of India. They represent the states of our country. They represent all the states in our country. So they are to take care of the interest of the states. Who are going to take care of the interest of the people? The members of the House of People, that is the members of the Lok Sabha. And they are basically to represent the interest of the states, the various states in our country. That's why they are called as Council of States. Apart from the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha, the parliament also comprise what? The president. So keep it in your mind. What constitutes the Parliament of India? The Parliament of India constitutes the two houses plus the President of India. But if the question comes, is the President of India a member of Parliament? The President of India is not a member of Parliament. The President of India is not a member of Parliament, but is he an integral part of the Parliament? Yes. If the question comes, is the President an integral part of Parliament? The answer is yes. If a question comes, the President is a member of Parliament, the answer is no. The members of Parliament can be from either houses. They can be from Lok Sabha or from Rajya Sabha. They are all members of Parliament. But the President is not a member of Parliament. But the President is an integral part of Parliament. If you ask me a question, sir, why the President is an integral part of Parliament, I'll discuss this answer a little later. Because if I start explaining right now, you will not understand that. But just try to understand this particular area. But now the key point is, this is what constitutes the Parliament. And now we are coming to the concept of what is called as parliamentary democracy. Now with this idea, I'll just put across a question, try to answer this question if you know it. How many times do you think that the elections to the Lok Sabha has happened after the commencement of the constitution? The election happened in 2024. So that is which election to the Lok Sabha? 18th Lok Sabha, 18th Lok Sabha, 17th Lok Sabha, 16th Lok Sabha, none of the above. So one answer is 18th Lok Sabha. Any other answer? When I say 18th Lok Sabha, that means he is answering your understanding. I assume that your understanding is after the commencement of the constitution, the election to the Lok Sabha has happened 18 times. Is that what is your understanding? Yes? Sure? Okay, so he is of the opinion 18 times the election to the Lok Sabha has happened. And we know that the election to the Lok Sabha will happen every 5 years. So 5 into 18 means 90 years. After the commencement of the constitution, how many years have happened? It is 75 years. So what is the answer? Is it 16th Lok Sabha, 17th Lok Sabha, 18th Lok Sabha, none of the above? 18th? You are sure? 18th Lok Sabha? So how many of you say no, it is not 18th? 16th Lok Sabha, 17th Lok Sabha. You are still confident 18th Lok Sabha? And you are confident because you have read somewhere. Okay, very good. So it is 18th Lok Sabha. The answer is right. But you also seen that the election happens every 5 years. Now, every 5 years is only a general rule. It is not that the elections can happen before that also. There are exceptions. So it is only a general rule. Many times, many Lok Sabha has not completed 5-year term. Before that, the government was dismissed. So therefore, 18th Lok Sabha has happened. Very good. 18th Lok Sabha. The last time the elections happened in 2024 is the 18th Lok Sabha. So now why I am going to the concept of parliamentary democracy? So why Sir is asking this 18th Lok Sabha, you'll have to understand. Now you tell me after the 18th Lok Sabha, do you know the process of how the government is formed? You should understand that also to understand the concept of what is parliamentary democracy. Just listen to me for 5 minutes, okay? Okay, 18th Lok Sabha election has completed. I think by June, the election was completed. I think June end, the government has also formed. 18th Lok Sabha elections in 2024, 18th Lok Sabha elections. Now, before the 18th Lok Sabha elections were completed, you should also know one more thing. How many members of parliament are there in the Lok Sabha? Does anyone know? 5? If you know it, it's okay. If you do not know it also, it's okay. Perfectly all right. I cannot expect you to know everything in the very first class. That's why you are here, to attend and to learn it. But if you know it, please tell me the answer. How many members are there in the Lok Sabha? 5? 540? 545? 543? 550? 552? My question is, how many members are there in the Lok Sabha? Not the max membership. Presently, how many members are there in the Lok Sabha? Below? That is not in my option. So you will have to answer based on the option that I have given. So you are not given the privilege of coming out with your own option as of now. Okay, 543 is the authorized strength right now, maximum authorized strength. Okay, so now try to understand the number of seats may go up to 550. The total number of seats that is allowed permissible under the constitution is presently 550. Originally it was 552, including 2 Anglo-Indian members who can be nominated, but presently there is no provision for Anglo-Indian nomination. That has been done away with. After the 104th Constitutional Amendment Act, that has been done away with. So presently the maximum membership can be 550, but however the present membership is only 543. Okay, so what is the strength? It is 543. So 543 MPs can be elected to the Lok Sabha. So when the 18th Lok Sabha election was over, that means when I say 543 members to the Lok Sabha, you might also understand that from the entire country 543 MPs can be elected. I hope you understand. And when I say the entire country, it includes all the 28 states and 8 union territories. So from all the 28 states and 8 union territories, how many MPs can be elected to the Lok Sabha? 543 MPs. And we also follow the principle of what is called a single member constituency. What do you mean by single member constituency? That every constituency, one person can be the winner. So anybody from the state of Uttar Pradesh in this class? Nobody from the state of Uttar Pradesh? Okay, so why I ask this particular question is Uttar Pradesh is the largest state in terms of number of constituencies. So therefore, in every class that I have, there is a possibility that the students from Uttar Pradesh is there, if not from the other states. Okay, so if you know it, does anyone tell me how many seats are there to the Lok Sabha from the state of Uttar Pradesh? 80 seats. That means out of 543, how many seats to Uttar Pradesh? 80 seats, and so on and so forth. Seats are given to every state and the union territories. So combining all those things, how many MPs will be elected to the Lok Sabha? 543. Okay, the Election Commission of India will declare the results of all the 543 constituencies. So 543 winners will come, but they may be from different parties. Somebody may be from BJP, somebody may be from Congress, somebody may be from Trinamool Congress, somebody may be from other regional parties. But however, after the result is over, somebody needs to have a majority. It can be a single party or it can be a coalition government. It can be a coalition of parties. So anybody who is a single largest party, single party, it may be a single party or it can be a coalition of party. But the key word is anybody who has got the majority, that is the key word. So any single party or a coalition of party or a coalition of parties, which has got the majority, what they'll do is they'll come together and they will elect a leader for a single party or for a coalition of party. And who is the leader presently? The coalition of parties have chosen, because the 18th Lok Sabha, no single party was having the majority. It was only a coalition government, which was the National Democratic Alliance, the NDA coalition, which the major party is the BJP, but it has its own minor partners. And this party, the coalition of parties or the NDA alliance, they have chosen their leader. And who is their leader? It was Mr. Narendra Modi, who was their leader. So they have chosen the leader, Mr. Narendra Modi, and then subsequently, once the leader is chosen, the leader of the coalition party will go to whom? He will go to the President of India. So the leader will go to the President. So in this case, it was Mr. Modi. So I'll use it Mr. Modi as the leader who was chosen by the coalition. So Mr. Modi has gone to the President of India after the election result is announced by the Election Commission of India. He'll say that these many people are supporting me as a leader and the result is announced by the Election Commission of India, and please appoint me as the Prime Minister of India. So who is supposed to appoint the Prime Minister? President. If a question comes, is the Prime Minister elected? What is the answer? The Prime Minister is not elected. Nobody is elected as a Prime Minister. Somebody is elected as a member of Parliament, subsequently appointed as a Prime Minister. So he or she is elected only as a member of Parliament, and he or she is chosen as the leader of the majority party or the leader of the majority coalition, and then subsequently they will go to the President of India and ask the President to appoint them as the Prime Minister because they are having the majority. So then subsequently the President has appointed Mr. Modi as the Prime Minister. So he is appointed as the Prime Minister, and then Mr. Modi will recommend the names of the other minister. To whom? To the President of India. And who will appoint the other ministers? It is a President. So do not make a mistake. This is a repeated theme that is asked in UPSC examination, that the Prime Minister is appointed by the President and the other ministers are appointed by the Prime Minister. No, that is not the right answer. Who appoints the Prime Minister? The President appoints a Prime Minister, and who appoints other ministers? The President appoints other ministers, but on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. The President has no discretion in this particular regard. The President has to strictly appoint the other ministers on the recommendation of whom? On the recommendation of the Prime Minister. So whatever the name suggested by the Prime Minister, the other ministers have to be appointed. Okay, all these things are for your general understanding, but the key thing is that I said that Mr. Modi is appointed as a Prime Minister by whom? By the President of India. The other ministers are appointed by the President on the recommendation of whom? On the recommendation of the Prime Minister. So in both the cases, we have understood that. But the question is, Mr. Modi can be appointed as a Prime Minister only when he has a majority. Only a majority members support him. So what is that majority that is required here? Out of 543. Please tell me, out of 543, they need to have more than 50%. That means they need to have a minimum support of how much? 272 MPs. Only when minimum 272 MPs support, including Mr. Modi, only with minimum 272 members support him as the Prime Minister, then only the President will appoint him as the Prime Minister. So right now, who is having this particular majority? Only the NDA coalition, not even the BJP party. That is why it is a coalition government. But if you have followed the elections, I think most of you in the previous elections, you might be in your school or something, so you may not have followed it. But if you have the knowledge of it, in the 17th Lok Sabha, was it a coalition government? The 17th Lok Sabha, it was BJP party which was having a single party which was having the majority. They individually have more than 300 seats, 300 MPs alone. Although they had their partners, but individually they had more than 300 seats. So therefore, at that time they had a single largest party. Individually they had the majority. But today, individually they do not have 272. So it's a coalition government. But that coalition government has chosen whom as their leader? Mr. Modi as their leader. So therefore, he has gone to the President. The President has appointed him as the Prime Minister. And the other ministers are appointed by the President on the recommendation of the Prime Minister of India. But I have not even come to the topic of parliamentary democracy. But before that, I have to explain all those things. Now coming to the concept of parliamentary democracy. Now, two things that you have to understand as to why it is called as parliamentary democracy. First of all, try to understand from where the government is formed. From where the government is formed. Or in other words, Mr. Modi was appointed as a Prime Minister. He is a member from where? He is a member of Parliament. He can be from Lok Sabha or from Rajya Sabha. That does not matter. He is basically whom? He is a member of Parliament. Now the other ministers are appointed by the President of India based on the recommendation of the Prime Minister. They come from where? They also represent where? They also come from the Parliament. They are also members of Parliament. So basically in a parliamentary democracy, from where the government is formed. So from where the ministers come from where the Prime Minister comes from, they are all members of the Parliament. So therefore, you can understand why it is called as parliamentary democracy, because a government is formed from where? From the people's representatives, basically who are there in the Lok Sabha or in the Rajya Sabha. So from where the government is formed. But that's not the only explanation for parliamentary democracy. So first of all, you'll have to understand from where the government is formed. from the members of the parliament. It is from the members of the parliament somebody is appointed as the prime minister and the ministers. But most importantly, why it is called as parliamentary democracy? I said that what is the majority that is required for them to form the government? 272. Now, this majority is not only required for them to form the government, but to continue this government for the next 5 years. Because what is the term of the Lok Sabha? 5 years. And to be in power, once appointed as a prime minister and the other ministers are appointed to continue in power for the next 5 years, they need to always have this majority in the Lok Sabha. That means this majority is not only required at the time of forming the government, but to continue the government, and for the next 5 years, at any point of time, they should have this minimum majority in the Lok Sabha. At any point of time, if the majority goes less than this, what is the answer? If the majority goes less than this, then this government can be dismissed. So basically, in other words, the legitimacy of this particular government is there, or this government can be considered to be a legitimate government only if this government is able to have this majority in the Lok Sabha. At any point of time, if they are not having the majority in the Lok Sabha, this government can be dismissed. And who can dismiss this particular government? The President of India can dismiss the government. So therefore, now come to the understanding of parliamentary democracy. Now, why we say that in India we have a parliamentary democracy? For two reasons. From where the government is formed? From the parliament. And the government is continuously accountable to the Lok Sabha, which is part of where? Which is part of the parliament. And how the government is continuously accountable to the Lok Sabha? The government is continuously accountable to the Lok Sabha because always they need to have a majority of 272 members minimum. It can be more than that. At any point of time, if the majority is less than 272, this government can be dismissed. Therefore, in a parliamentary democracy, ultimately the government is accountable to whom? The government is accountable to the Lok Sabha because in the Lok Sabha, they always need to have the majority. And who are there in the Lok Sabha? Who are there in the Lok Sabha? What it is called as? House of People. That means basically the members in the Lok Sabha represent the interest of the people. So on behalf of the people, who will make the government accountable? The members of parliament in the Lok Sabha, and that is why it is called as parliamentary democracy. So ultimately, who has authority to remove the government? The authority to remove the government is there in the House of People and who represent the interest of the people. But the people, we say that democracy means ruled by people, but the people do not directly have this power. And they are delegating this power to whom? To the members of the Lok Sabha. So do you understand the concept of parliamentary democracy? Let me just repeat it one more time. Now try to understand two important things. One, in case of parliamentary democracy, from where the government is formed? The government is formed from the parliament. To be very specific, mostly from the members of the Lok Sabha, somebody can be from the members of the Rajya Sabha also. But any government that is formed, they needs to have continuous majority in where? In the Lok Sabha. And they should always have a minimum of 272 members. Or in other words, that in a parliamentary democracy, the government is continuously accountable to the parliament. And to be very specific, in case of India, they're continuously accountable to the members of the Lok Sabha because they always need to have a majority. So unless and until they have this majority, this government can be removed. So that is the very important essence of what is called as parliamentary democracy. Or to put it in a very simple way, many times this theme has come in the examination. What is the essence of parliamentary democracy? The very essence of parliamentary democracy is the accountability of the government to the legislature, or the accountability of the government means executive. The accountability of the executive to the legislature. So here the legislature means specifically whom? To the Lok Sabha, because Lok Sabha is part of the parliament. And how this accountability is ensured? This accountability is ensured because they always need to have a specific majority in the Lok Sabha. And what is the majority that is required? 272 members. So what is the very essence of a parliamentary democracy? Who is accountable to whom? The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. They are part of what? The Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers, they are part of what? They are called as executive. So who is accountable to the whom? So the executive is accountable to whom? The executive is accountable to the legislature because they should always have a majority in the Lok Sabha. And how this majority can be checked? Okay, at the time of forming the government, the person who wanted to be appointed as a prime minister will take a list and say these many people are supporting me. So therefore the president will know, okay, they are supporting him. But once a government is formed, if they wanted to see whether the government is having the majority or not, how it can be checked? Very good. The opposition parties will try to introduce what is called as a no confidence motion. And this no confidence motion, so presently who is a major opposition party? The Congress, probably the Congress and the India Alliance. So they can introduce what is called as a no confidence motion against the government in the Lok Sabha. So when they try to introduce, have you ever heard of this word no confidence motion? This no confidence motion, if they are trying to introduce, means that they are bringing in a proposal saying that the government is not having the majority. That means they are trying to bring it to the notice of the presiding officer that the government is having less than 272 members who are supporting it. And then there will be a discussion and then they'll put to vote. If the no confidence motion is passed, that means the government is not having the majority. If the no confidence motion is defeated, then the government is having the majority. So this is the basic understanding. That means the government to be in power, it is not only necessary at the time of forming the government they have the majority, but they should always have this majority in the Lok Sabha. So therefore, the very essence of parliamentary democracy is that the government or the executives is continuously accountable to whom? Continuously accountable to the legislature. That is, to be very specific, to the Lok Sabha. And that's an essence of what is called as parliamentary democracy, because ultimately who is controlling the government? The parliament. And to be very specific, the Lok Sabha. And who is there in the Lok Sabha? The members of parliament, and basically they represent the interest of the people. So ultimately whose control is there over the government? It is a control of the people through their representatives in the Lok Sabha. So that is why it is called as the parliamentary democracy. Is it clear as to why it is called as parliamentary democracy? So this is again a very, very important thing. Many times questions have come from this particular area. I think there's a question. I'll just take you to the question. Just look into the question. Okay, so just have a look into this particular question. Okay, so have a look into this particular question. A parliamentary system of government is one. So this was asked in the year 2020. Only you have a conceptual understanding, you'll be able to solve this. A parliamentary system of government is one in which, just take your time and try to answer the question. B. Okay, a parliamentary system of government is one. Let us try to solve all the options. Okay. A parliamentary system of government is one. All political parties in the parliament are represented in the government. Say, for example, today the Congress is also there in the parliament, but are they reflected in the government? They are not there in the government. So definitely it is not the case. So this is wrong. The government is elected by the people and can be removed by them. Is it true? Now try to understand, in a parliamentary system of government, the government is elected by the people. That is okay. But they cannot be removed directly by the people. They can be removed only by the representatives of the people. So that is not possible. So don't take the implied understanding. So it is not the direct one. So this can also be eliminated, even if you do not know the right answer, I'm saying. Now come to the last thing. The government is chosen by the parliament but cannot be removed by it before the completion of the fixed term. Is it true? It can be removed as long as they do not have the majority. They can be removed by the members of the Lok Sabha. So it is not necessary. If it is for a fixed term, how is it possible to have 18 elections in 75 years? That means some government has not completed the full 5-year term. So to say that they cannot be removed, it is not true. They can be removed, and how they can be removed? They can be removed through a no confidence motion. So therefore, this is also wrong. So now come here. If you know the answer, it is easy directly. Otherwise, you can go for this elimination process. The government is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by it. Is it true? Yes. In general, it is parliament, but specifically who has the power within the parliament? Because the parliament has 3 components. Who are the component? The Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, and the president. So where they have to always possess a majority? In the Lok Sabha, and that is why it is called as parliamentary democracy. So in a parliamentary democracy, what is the essence? The executives are accountable to the legislature. So UPSC in the last 10 years, 7-8 times have asked this particular question. But this particular statement they can frame in any way. But the essence is what? The essence is accountability of executive to whom? accountability of executive to the legislature, and to be very specific in the legislature to whom? To the Lok Sabha. Okay. So what is the answer? The government is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by it. And that is why the kind of democracy that we have got is what is called as parliamentary democracy. Is that clear to all of you? Because ultimately the government democracy means ruled by people. But this government in our country, from where do they come from? They come from the parliament, and they are also accountable to the parliament. And that's the reason it is called as parliamentary democracy. Is that clear? But however, a presidential democracy is a little different from parliamentary democracy. But I'll do about these things when I take up the comparison of constitution across the world, not right now. So in general, you should have an understanding what is democracy? Ruled by people. But in a parliamentary democracy, from where do the government get formed? From the parliament, and they continuously remain accountable to the parliament. And to be very specific, within the parliament, it is Lok Sabha. Is that clear to all of you? So what are the things that you have learned today? So 3-4 themes and 3 questions we are able to solve from whatever you learned. And these 3 questions at any time they can be repeated, and most likely 1 question will come in every year. It may be from parliamentary democracy, it can be from the concept of constitutionalism, it can be from the definition of state, but 1 question is likely to come in every year, at least from these 3 questions. That means even if you have listened properly, if you have understood, you are empowered to answer 1 question in Indian polity. And that too, we have not even entered into the subject. So these are all, but basic understanding you should have. All right. So let me just repeat it once again. So what does it mean by constitution? I'm talking about the prelims examination. These things may not be asked in the mains examination. They'll ask a different question. So we understood as to what is a constitution. Is that clear? It is a fundamental rule book of our country based on which the country is governed. But whatever rules that is given in the constitution is not sufficient enough to govern a large and a very complex country like India. So therefore, apart from the fundamental rules which is given in the constitution, we have other rules also. We have other laws also. But they're all not called as constitution. How are they called as? Ordinary laws. So therefore, you also understood the distinction between what is a constitutional law and an ordinary law. Is that also clear? And we also not only understood about what is a constitution, we also understood the concept of what is called as constitutionalism. Now, what do you understand by the word constitutionalism? So the constitutionalism means when the constitution is implemented in letter and spirit, then only it becomes constitutionalism. And one of the important essence of constitutionalism is that there should be limitation upon the powers of the government. And without that, you cannot ensure what is called as constitutionalism. So we understood constitutionalism also. Now, keep this in your mind. It is not mandatory to have a written constitution to ensure what is called as constitutionalism. Okay, so it is always not necessary to have what is called as a written constitution. Be it a written constitution or an unwritten constitution, there can exist what is called as constitutionalism. We have seen examples also. India is an example of a written constitution where there is a constitutionalism. But there are many written constitutions where there is no constitutionalism. One example you have seen is Pakistan. And then there are unwritten constitutions which can also exist where there can be constitutionalism. The example is United Kingdom, Israel. They are all unwritten constitution, but there is constitutionalism. So it is not necessary to have only a written constitution to ensure what is called as constitutionalism. And then we have understood the difference between what is called as a written and an unwritten constitution. So I want one of you to explain the basic essence, the basic difference between a written and an unwritten constitution. Yes. Very good. Both are codified. Very good. So the basic distinction exists in case of a written constitution as to what is a constitutional law and what is an ordinary law. And what would constitute the constitutional law? What are the things that comprise of the constitutional law? Very good. Very good. So these are all falling under the definition of constitutional law. Apart from this, all the other laws which is made by the parliament, they would come under the ordinary law. But whereas this distinction does not exist in case of what is called as an unwritten constitution. So because you have seen in case of United Kingdom, starting Magna Carta in 1215, the Great Charter, any law that is enacted by the British Parliament, the conventions that they follow, the interpretation which is given by the courts, they all come under what is called as their constitution. So basically the distinction does not exist. So therefore, which constitution is rigid and which constitution is flexible? Written is rigid relatively, whereas an unwritten constitution is flexible. So this is a fundamental difference between written and unwritten constitution. And then subsequently, we have understood as to what is a democracy. What makes India as a democracy? Democracy basically means ruled by people, but in addition to that, there should be certain essential features that would make a particular government a democracy or a political system a democracy. So some of the features that also makes India as a democracy, first and foremost, we think we have seen is regular elections. Do you have regular elections? It is not only regular elections, but we should also have what is called as free and fair elections. Do we have free and fair elections? We also have what is called as free and fair elections. And apart from that, most importantly, we also have what is called as universal adult suffrage. So only these things can make it as a democracy. So we have all those things. But India is not merely a democracy, we are also a parliamentary democracy. So when we say of parliamentary democracy, two things you'll have to understand: from where the government is formed, from where it is formed, from the parliament. It is not only formed from the parliament, and that government that is formed from the parliament is also continuously accountable to the parliament, because the parliament has authority to remove the government when they do not have the majority. Although use the word broader term parliament, which is also right, but specifically if they put Lok Sabha, it is even more right, because continuously they need to have the majority only in the Lok Sabha, not in the Rajya Sabha. All right, is that clear to all of you? Now the question is why the president is also considered to be an integral part of parliament. Anyways, this is a long way to go before I discuss this, but every day I wanted to give you some question. If you have an interest, you can make a research about it if you have the time. But if you do not have the time, do not waste the time. Anyways, I'll discuss. But if you have an interest, if you have a curiosity, if you're not focusing on 2026, probably if you're focusing after 2026, you can do this exercise, because 2026 means you'll have otherwise a lot of other work to do. But if you're preparing for 2027 or 2028, then you can do all these exercises. All right. How many of you are preparing for 2026? So none of you will be in a position to do this, but okay. And how many of you have already joined your optional also? Now, why I'm asking this is, if you're focusing for 2026, irrespective of whatever optional, that is up to you to decide. But if you're planning for 2026, my advice would be that you complete your optional before December 2025, because you cannot postpone that to the next year, then you will be under heavy pressure. And that's not a good idea, because to consolidate a particular optional, you will take 6 months if it is an easy optional. There are some tough optionals. When I say tough optionals, not tough in terms of the understanding, because optional also depends upon your own ability, your own strength and weakness. But say, let us take the optional like mathematics. It will take 1 year for you to go through the syllabus itself. But there are few optionals which you can do it in 6 months. It is up to you as to which optional you take. So depending upon the optional that you'll have to choose the time. But irrespective of whatever optional that you decide, if you are a serious candidate for 2026, you should prepare and complete your optional, going to the class or by yourself, whatever way. You should at least go through the syllabus and complete the notes and all those things before December. Because after that, it will take for you another 3 to 4 months to consolidate the optional, probably which you can do it after the mains examination. But by December, you should have completed the course at least. Before December, if you have not completed the course, then that is not a good idea to go for the next year prelims. Because even by any chance, if you clear the prelims also, you are not prepared for your mains. To do the optional at the time of mains and to consolidate, that is not possible to complete an optional. So the best time would be to complete before December. Okay. But what optional you want to choose, it is for you to decide. You can decide that, but I'm just saying about the timeline. So with that, we are almost coming to the end of session 1. But before I complete, so what we are going to do tomorrow is that if you have the time, you can just read few things before. If you have the time, otherwise you can just come to the class. But whatever you will have to definitely do is, whatever you have revised today has to be, whatever you have done today should be definitely revised. Because whenever I go to the next class, there's a continuity between this class and the next class. So therefore, if you do not revise some of the things today, then it may become little difficult for you to follow. So try to revise all the things. So tomorrow I'll try to cover all these things. I'll try to cover all the salient features. I think another 10 to 12 salient features are there. Tomorrow I'll be able to cover all those things. And on the third class, I'll try to do the keywords in the Indian polity. So once I'm done with all those things, then we'll go to the next part where I'll start the historical background. Okay, so this is again very, very important. But even from these 2-3 classes, I'm sure that 2 to 3 questions will come in prelims examination, not in the mains. In the prelims examination, 2 to 3 questions may come. So be clear about all those things. All right, so a couple of more minutes, busy in packing the bags. Please listen. Okay, any doubts from any of you? No doubts? Okay, go revise. So tomorrow, first 5 minutes, I'll allocate for the doubts. Okay, if you have any doubts, but please do revise. Otherwise, your preparation will become little difficult. Just give me a moment. Any questions from the online students? Okay, so there's a question from the student. What is the question that I've seen? Okay, so here in the option C, the government is elected by the people can be removed by them. So can we say that the government is elected by the people as a parliamentary democracy? Now, when you say parliamentary democracy, government elected by the people is not an appropriate thing. When you say democracy, you can say the government is elected by the people. But parliamentary democracy, the idea is that the government is accountable to the parliament. That's the most important thing. So to merely say that the government is elected by the people would not be appropriate. Is that clear? So please revise all the things, whatever you've seen, whatever you have learned today. And tomorrow in the first 5 minutes, if you have any doubts, I'll take up your doubt, but revision is very, very important on a daily basis. All right. Okay. So thank you very much. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay.